Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Like to call this meeting to order of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners. Today is October 24th at 1-ish p.m. Sorry. Got a lot of paperwork to do up here. I would like to invite Pastor Mike Kramer from the First United Methodist Church of Inverness to come up and give the invocation. And Doug, you didn't give me the... John McGee. Oh, great. I know John. Great. Awesome. And John McGee is going to do the pledge. And so if you are willing and able to stand with us, and please silence your devices. Pastor Kramer, take it away.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you that we can gather here in our wonderful city of Inverness. We thank you, dear God, for all these leaders, all these men and women that sacrifice their time and their talents to be here and leading for our city and for our county. We especially remember Ruthie today, who was in surgery. We pray, dear God, that your hand would be upon her and upon the surgery, Lord, that it may be done efficiently and smoothly. Lord, help this meeting to run smoothly, Lord, because of you. Help our voices to be heard, and also that our vision would be part of your vision. Oh, dear God, help us with unity to work together. And dear God, may you bless this agenda, that everything is said and done, bring glory to you. All these things we pray in your blessed name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. And as always, thank you for your service. Rolling into one of my favorite months, Veterans Month, more or less, especially here in Citrus County. Okay, roll call, please.
This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners. This 24th day of October, 2023. In attendance are First Vice Chair Holly Davis, Second Vice Chair Rebecca Bays, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Diana Finnegan, County Administrator Steve Howard, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond-Lund.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Board, looking for a motion for the approval of the agenda. There are no changes, Mr. Howard?
There are no changes.
Okay.
Motion to approve item A4.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Board, what's your pleasure on the consent agenda? Would you like to take it in its entirety?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
B1 through 5.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any board discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Chair, can I get the clarification who the second was? Because
I'm sorry, I heard
Okay,
Commissioner Bay's second. First for the second. Anyway, Board, what is your pleasure on proclamations?
Motion to approve C1, C2, and C3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we are going to go to open to the public.
How about we do our proclamations?
Oh, thank you. See this? Thank you for being my wing woman. I like to run a tight meeting, so we're just going to move right on through, man. Thank you for that.
Come on, you got this. Will those individuals representing the 2023 Veterans Appreciation Week and Veterans Day please come forward? Whereas this year's theme for Veterans Appreciation Week is 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Whereas it is fitting that we as Americans join in honoring the men and women who served and sacrificed in Vietnam. Whereas approximately 3.4 million veterans deployed to Southeast Asia and approximately 2.7 million of those served in the Republic of Vietnam. Whereas in honoring those who served, let us not forget the 58,279 service members who died in theater from 1957 to 1975. Over 47,000 lost their lives as a result of combat, and nearly 11,000 perished from other causes. In addition, more than 300,000 were wounded during the war, and many still suffer today from the lingering effects of Agent Orange and post-traumatic stress disorder. This year's Veterans Appreciation Week has been set aside to honor the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of November 5th through November 12th as Veterans Appreciation Week in Citrus County, Florida, and that November 11th, 2023, be designated as Veterans Day in Citrus County, Florida, executed this 24th day of October, 2023.
Again, we're going to celebrate the 50th anniversary, designated the 50th anniversary of the end of the war in Vietnam. We'd like to invite you all to not only the parade on November the 11th, but on October 29th, there'll be a massing of the colors at the Seven Rivers Church. There'll be a free band concert with the Nature Coast Band, and it's a ceremony of all of the veterans organizations coming together. And that starts at 3 o'clock on the 29th. Just real quickly, when you talk about the war in Vietnam, and I'm going to do it real quickly, some of the things that people don't know. When you talk about the 58,000 names on the wall, they weren't draftees. 2/3 of all of the men who served in Vietnam were volunteers. 2/3 of the names on the wall were volunteers. We were the beginning of the all-volunteer army. That's what started. We were not called the greatest generation, but the Vietnam veterans were the greatest of our generation. The VA you know today exists because the Vietnam veterans fought for the benefits and the VA to improve itself in the hospitals. All the veterans organizations, the Vietnam veterans took it over. But the young veterans need to step up because we're dying off.
So, of course, John's a good friend of mine, and thank you for your service. I know a lot of them didn't get that welcome home, so welcome home, John. And also, can all other veterans please stand so we can recognize you as well?
Would those individuals supporting Operation Greenlight for Veterans please come forward? Whereas the residents of Citrus County have great respect, admiration, and the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces, the contributions and sacrifices of those who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedom and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas Citrus County seeks to honor individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all, and whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, religious groups, civil service, and by functioning as county veteran service officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. Studies indicate that 44 to 77% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life. Active military service members transitioning from military service are at a high risk of suicide during their first year after military service. The National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for Veterans. Citrus County appreciates the sacrifice of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted. Now, therefore, with designation as a green light for veterans, the Board of County Commissioners of Citrus County, Florida, does hereby proclaim from October through Veterans Day, November 11th, 2023, a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifices of our men and women in uniform, transitioning from active service, and encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying green lights in a window of their place of business or residence from November 6th to November 12th, 2023. Executed this 24th day of October, 2023. And would those individuals representing Domestic Violence Awareness Month please come forward? Whereas domestic violence is a crime that threatens the safety and lives of thousands of Citrus County residents every year, and domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors that individuals use against their intimate partners or former partners to establish power and control. Any person can be a victim of domestic violence, regardless of age, sex, ethnicity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, or religion. And whereas domestic violence traumatizes victims, harms families, threatens communities, and increases the likelihood for children who are subjected to it to grow up and inflict violence on others in the community, creating a cycle of violence that our community must be unified to stop. Whereas victims require help to find the compassion, resources, and healing they need, and domestic abusers must be held accountable and punished to the fullest extent of the law. And whereas the powerful partnerships between state and local agencies, nonprofit and private organizations, law enforcement agencies and the courts, healthcare and legal providers, faith-based communities, and educational institutions are creating a coordinated community response to domestic violence. And whereas CASA remains committed to lead the community along with its coordinated community response team to raise public awareness about how to prevent, recognize, and stop domestic violence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners does hereby recognize October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and encourage all Citrus County citizens to work collectively to promote healthy and peaceful relationships and prevent domestic violence. Executed this 24th day of October 2023.
So I had a little delay at the end of September. So I appreciate all the commissioners for your service and for this proclamation in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I have all my friends up here because CASA is not doing this alone. Our entire community, our partner agencies, businesses, and citizens are stepping up to help raise awareness about domestic violence and improve our response. Last year, CASA provided shelter and supportive services to 1,650 survivors of domestic violence and their children through all of our programs. We also provided violence prevention education to over 3,775 students. In total, CASA touched the lives of 6,155 citizens through our intervention, prevention, and education. We continue to raise awareness in our community to recognize that domestic violence is a community issue. It is not one that only happens behind the doors of a single home. Violence in our homes will continue to spill out onto our streets if we do not unite and take action. Domestic violence can happen to anyone and is more prevalent and deadly than people realize. Last year, there were 11 homicides in Citrus County. 4 of those were domestic violence murders, not incidents. Anyone, regardless of gender, race, sexual identity, orientation, status, can become a victim of domestic violence, and it is much more than the physical violence alone. I want to recognize all of my partners in our coordinated community response team. This group of leaders from the State Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, the Victim Advocacy Division, the Records Division, Citrus County Fire Rescue and EMS, the Clerk's Office, our batterers intervention providers, the jail, Department of Children and Families, and more providers are uniting to ensure that survivors are protected and batterers are held accountable. With their help, CASA is working to make every home in Citrus safe because safe homes mean a safe community. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to do open to the public. So if you would like to speak get over on, line up on the wall there. There's a green slip. You can fill it out and turn it into the clerk either before or after you speak, either one. You'll get 3 minutes. Please watch the timer, because I really hate to cut people off. It will go yellow 1 minute before your 3 minutes is up. If you have a letter on file, please let us know that at the beginning, so you'll get 5 minutes. Before that, I would like to, because I see some folks from Pine Ridge in the audience, I would like our attorney to explain quasi-judicial and what restrictions that means on how we cannot respond today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to remind the board that the Pine Ridge hearing was scheduled for this evening at 5:01. At the request of the applicant, that application was removed from your agenda, so it is not going to be heard today. Nothing will be before the Board of County Commissioners related to that application. So I would just caution the board that although we don't limit public input, of course, on any topic, I would caution you not to engage with anyone related to that hearing because, as you know, that is a quasi-judicial matter and it'll be before you. I wouldn't want to lead anybody to believe there were any ex parte communications outside of that hearing. So,
Thank you, Madam Attorney. And I have faced ugly crowds and I have faced polite crowds, and it doesn't matter one difference in what I decide, and I would say the same is for the board. So if you could keep it civil, we'd really appreciate it. It's a long day to get through, and we are trying to do the best we can for the county. So who would like to go first?
it's Rose.
Oh, one of my favorites, yay.
Moment, Rose, I got you. I know, don't worry about it.
Rose, you're awesome. I can't,
Close to the mic, come close to the mic, right there. Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
and please state your name for the record.
Rose Lenardis.
Hi, Rose.
Hi. I was here about a month ago.
Uh-huh.
Right. Mr. Howard, I learned that that vacant lot is, I think, a state law. Because I spoke to someone else that has the same problem and complaints that I have. So I believe that there's something that should be looked into because it's an old law probably. And it is a nuisance. Now that's the reason why I came in today, because I can't seem to get anyone to speak to. You're all very busy. I call, I don't get a phone call, so I thought I'd come in. And if you don't mind, and Mrs. Bays, I appreciate you calling me, but I'm sorry I wasn't at home. I thank you. And the thing is that I'm from Westchester County, New York. It's a very lovely place. I lived in a $2 million house. I came here and we had this house built just for the winter months. And we were here for 20 years, just only the summer. My son is an architect, and he designed the house. And it was a nice area, Lake Tasala Gardens. There were retirees, and they all were from the north, and it was very pleasant, but now it isn't. Now my lot is 65 by 103. I paid $12,000 for it that time. And I'm losing it. Because with the water, the storm water, the rain, it is washed. The neighbor, he installed 4 gutters on the side of his house and made sure that my topsoil was washed into the lake, which borders my property in the back. And now it's all gravel. My lawn is gravel. The grass doesn't grow. And then the vacant lot is not maintained. But on the other side, the adjacent property owner, he is using it for his own personal use. But he didn't come over on my side to clean it up. And now the leaves from last year that was not taken care of are now all over my front lawn and my driveway. And now at my age, I can't go out there and sweep up that driveway every day. And I cannot afford to hire someone. Is that my bit?
That is, thank you, Rose. For the newcomers here that don't know what the drill is, normally we respond to everyone if we care to after everyone is done. We make, how old are you again, Rose?
I turned 99 in August.
So when y'all get to be 99 and you're still up here talking to us, we're going to give you special dispensation too.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Landon, where are you? Right there. Hello. Would you mind speaking with Rose before she departs to find out if there's a code violation with the runoff? Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
Very good to see you as always.
Thank you.
Next
Thank you
speaker,
very
please.
much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, sweetheart.
Sometimes rules need to be a little flexible.
Hi, my name is Don Maycock. I'm new to the area. Just moved to Inverness from New York State area. I'm here today. My wife Shirley and I bought and moved into a home on North Independence Highway in May of this year. For those that don't know that highway, it runs diagonal from Highway 41 to 44. Very busy highway. The home is directly next to the highway, and there's a natural gas pipeline already installed along the property line. The project that we've undertaken is to install a natural gas generator for the house in case electrical power goes out. And we started the project several months ago and have contracted Florida Public Utilities to run a natural gas line about 60 feet to the side of the house, and Trademark Electric to install the generator and do the associated wiring and switching. They submitted a building permit, and the number is 2023-20593 for this job. And then we ran into a dilemma. Back in September, I was informed by the contractors that there's a moratorium on all building permits for the Inverness Village Unit 4. I think people may know that. Recently, this moratorium was extended another 3 months, which looks like it's going to run to December, mid-December. I do not know the whole story behind, but there's a local builder, last name is Vander Valk, and I understand that there are some major unresolved building code issues or violations. This company is at least a quarter of a mile away from where we are. We're not in the area where he's building. We're on the main highway. The buildings are all on sand roads in behind. And our building permit has nothing to do with Vander Valk. And stopping us does not really get him to what I believe he's not in compliance. And whatever the issue is with the county, I don't understand. I read, but I'm not sure what it is. So we're kind of at a standstill on something that I don't have any control over, and I would appreciate comments of what we need to consider next. So again, it's 2023-20593, and thank you for listening.
What is your name again?
Don Maycock, Maycock.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Walser. I live in 5221 North Mallow Circle. I appreciate the board being here today. I'm very happy to see that 4 of you can conduct business, and I would like to offer prayers to Ruthie Schlebog in her absence today. We pray that she could have a great surgery with a great recovery. We pray God is with her and the people that will be performing this surgery. And I just wanted to take a minute to recognize her and what her and her family are going through today. And thank you all for being here. Also, I wanted to mention that the mission statement that we see here today and many times in the past is to me is amazing. It's why a lot of us moved here. It's only one sentence, but it contains everything that we hope that you guys can help us achieve, and that's to manage the growth, foster prosperity by prioritizing the protection of our environmental assets, the development and maintenance of infrastructure, and the health, safety, and well-being of its citizens. I agree with you. That's extremely important, and we appreciate your effort in doing that. I also wanted to let you know that I'm the chairman of the Save the Golf Course Committee, and one of the reasons you're seeing a presence of us here today is because we're extremely happy to see that Section M1, Special Master and Land Use Discussions, and we hope in our time here that this can result in something that benefits the entire county. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Mr. Walser. And I'll let it go this time, but please no applause or jeering or anything else. We just want to get through the meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane South. I live at 5530 North Elkham Boulevard, Pine Ridge, and I am the secretary for the Save the Pine Ridge Golf Course Committee. And I would like to, I have a couple of points, couple issues. Realizing that our hearing or case got postponed, I would really love to know what indefinite means, because a lot of us have given a lot of time and we would like to see this come to fruition. And we understand it's a quasi-judicial, we understand that, but that would be one point that we would love clarification on. And also the other is the concern that I have, like Ron was talking about, prioritizing the protection of environmental assets, meaning Pine Ridge Golf Course, whether it be a course or be used for something else. We are exponentially growing here in Citrus County. We all know that with the amount of housing that's going on. And just a few miles down the road, there is approximately, and I say multifamily and single-family homes, about 7,300 new homes. What are we going to do for recreation in this area if we actually throw the golf course under the bus and say it can't be redeveloped, which it's a very viable product and it can be fixed and just created into an incredible venue. I'm just real concerned about that instead of just placing 85 homes on it. So please, we're asking you to think about, I know you always do as well, the overall good of the community and what we're going to do for resources for recreation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Nope. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Violet, excuse me, Violet Langeri. I live on Mallows Circle in Pine Ridge. I just have a few questions for you that you might address. Why were we not in a timely manner provided notice that our hearing had been canceled? We've really worked hard on it and it just really didn't sit well with us. When you get to it, would you explain what special master is, why it is needed? Did our pending hearing for the golf course have bearing on the request for a special master? And will a special master, if authorized, be utilized for all land use decisions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Marianne Weatherington, and I'm a resident here in Citrus County. I'm here today to show support for the border resolution. I recognize it's not on the agenda today, but I'm still in support of it. We need to remind ourselves about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is usually depicted in the shape of a pyramid. At the base is the fundamental physiological need for food, water, and warmth. If these needs aren't met, we can't proceed we die. Next comes our need for safety and security. We take personal responsibility for securing our home and keeping our family safe. I would never build a house and furnish it prior to installing locking windows and doors. Another example, if I were to invite you to bring your 10-year-old daughter over to my home to play in my yard, I have no fence and I live on a busy street and my next door neighbor is a registered sex offender. Would you allow this? I hope not. Just like that basic level, if our safety and security needs are not met, we cannot proceed further up the pyramid to what are known as psychological and self-fulfillment needs, things like relationships, friends, feelings of accomplishment, and creative activities. An example would be, I would never purchase a home entertainment system prior to buying a bed for myself. We have assigned some responsibility to our government, which includes the state and local levels, to keep us safe and secure. You just approved the sheriff's very large budget, one that is higher than a 3.2 COLA for the 2024 Social Security recipients. For this discussion, let's assume it was done to keep me safe and secure. So you're on board and are taking action to keep me safe and secure in the county level. In the state level, you should do the same. The government at every level has the responsibility to keep the citizens safe and secure. Securing the border is a basic part of that. When people cross over our border illegally, they break the law. What other laws will they be willing to break? I am not willing to take a chance and find out. Please consider supporting the border resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Oh, thank you. And I forgot one other thing that I need to say. You go ahead, everybody else that's in line, please mark your place. We're gonna break for our time certain as soon as you're done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lala Sanders, and I've lived here in Citrus County for 20 years. Today, I'm going to be speaking about the border resolution. Today, we are letting illegals come in unvetted, and we are being invaded at the border. We begged for Trump to build a wall, and he did. Why did Biden open the borders the day he was sworn in, and why? To bring unrest all over the U.S., bring in diseases entering the states, and other reasons. Look at what is happening in our world today. We need to be praying for Israel. Where else in the world can you come in illegally without consequences when there is a process to come in legally? Why do we have walls or fences around our homes? Our Border Patrol is actually getting paid for filling out paperwork to let them in due to no real border policy. Do we have non-government organizations right here in our county and are unaware of it? And are they really not funded by the government that could be helping illegals? I saw a live YouTube video when I ran Palestine militant group protesting right here in Tampa, Florida, streamed by an independent journalist. They were burning U.S. and Israeli flags. I saw Tampa police, state troopers, and why do we have federal agency known as the Capitol Police in Hillsborough County? There is a squad in Congress that are blaming Israel for war crimes, and they need to be removed from office due to their actions. Have they been asked about the border crisis and what they plan to do with the illegals? We have live streamers on the border states that are fully funded by citizens that bring the real truth. I'm hurrying, hoping not to get run out of time here. Bring the real truth, and we see live action with our own eyes on what is happening with no editing or fake news. I am very disappointed with the Chronicle's attacks on the board and specifically the sponsor of the border security resolution. It is very disappointing that Congress has taken no action on this crisis. Our congressional delegation needs to hear from us that we want Congress to do something to secure the border. So we are asking you to put the border resolution on your next agenda. Please be our voice to our congressional delegation that we are not satisfied with their inaction by passing a strong border resolution at our next meeting. Was very appalled by the Chronicle on border concerns that I missed it for them to write an article stating border security is not a device or controversial issue for the vast majority of the county residents. And who is we? The Chronicle does not represent me. Thank you so much for your time to listen to my concern, and to those that have the decency to reply back to my emails. Thank you. Your concern and character is noticed.
Thank you. All right, everyone, we have 4 time certains, and if any of them, which means they cannot start before it, but they can start after. So if we finish early on any of these, we can't go to the next one, then I'll invite you up, Stephen, because I believe you were the first or whoever was right in front of you. And we'll try to fit in open to the public in between the presentations. So now for our, we have CHW here to talk about CR-486 Interchange Management. You can turn your card in anytime, sir, but we'll invite you up once we're not doing presentations. Did that make any sense? I'm sorry. We're breaking open to the public right now. We're going to come back to it. We have, they're called time certains, and we have consultants come in and give us presentations, and they need to go back to work. So they're going to come in and give us the presentation, and then we'll fit open to the public in as we finish these.
The time run out for
Just for now. It's a timeout just for now. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Good afternoon. Ryan Thompson with CHW. Proud to be your consultant on the County Road 486 IMA. Today, we just want to give you an update. We met with you a few months ago, went over kind of what ideas we had for the IMA boundary and what kind of uses and how we would break that up. We've taken your direction on that matter. We've also taken your direction on continuing the website. That's been up. And we were nominated and runner-up for an award for that website. So very proud that we were able to have that distinction. Wish we could have won it, but we were very, very close. And so thank you for your direction and keeping that going. So today, our objective is to seek your input. We're really looking for your guidance and direction on a few key points. So I'm going to be very succinct and share those with you. We met with the Planning and Development Committee a couple weeks ago. I'll share some of the input that we received from them, and we'll go from there. So thank you. The first is the review process, and I have a slide for this. We feel strongly that the PUD process is a burden on development. It is costly and time-consuming. We understand that there is a desire for the public input and the Board of County Commissioners review of applications of a certain magnitude. And what we would like to do is introduce the idea of a neighborhood workshop. I think it's much more direct, and it's before we get into a public hearing process that we're able to listen to neighbors, hear their concerns about a proposed development, and hopefully mitigate those concerns prior to coming to a public hearing. Then also for projects of a certain size, also require your approval for those site plans. So that's one topic that we would like to discuss. We've also provided in the backup material draft language that included proposed uses. We received feedback from the PDC that some of those uses need to be vetted a little further. We're working with staff to ensure that those are vetted adequately. The third item is confirming that there is single-family residential detached in the IMA area. So how do we treat those with new development that may be taller, may be denser? If you recall, when we met with you before, we're looking at a mixed-use area that is kind of a town center type atmosphere that would have apartments and shopping and that kind of nature of development. And in the employment center area, we're looking at kind of focus on job growth, but kind of a office park or light industrial type situation. So when development comes in and it's adjacent to a single family detached home, yes, we want to respect that home. We want to protect that home. But on the other side of that, you're limiting the long-term maximum development potential of the IMA. So there is some fine line of what setbacks, building height, and buffers we have to those single-family residential. So I would appreciate your thoughts on that subject matter. Number 4, proposed, let me see here, I'm sorry, I'm getting out of line here. Okay, that's number 4. Number 3, I apologize, is whether or not we allow single-family detached residential as a use within the IMAs. It's a low-density residential use. We feel that the infrastructure in this area supports higher density. It's a focus point of development within the county, and we feel that it should be limited, if allowed at all, that the focus should be more on moderate to higher density residential within the county.
Do you want questions in the middle, or do you want us to wait till the end?
It's up to this board how you would like to proceed. I can either continue to go through all these and then
You're in the hot seat. I
have
don't want
you
to interrupt your
respond?
flow or if you would prefer. My question would be if the third question about single family detached is to accommodate existing properties that are within the IMA, existing homes. Otherwise, they would not be, I assume in a mixed use development, we wouldn't have any single family if it was just a green field.
We see it both ways. It's on the periphery that we see single-family detached if it is included in a mixed-use development. And it just depends, if this board would like to see, a higher density in that area, whether or not we allow it.
I believe that there are a few single family homes, and I believe they're pretty close to the periphery, are they not?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In
Madam
both
Chair?
sub-areas.
Yes, sir.
I think that these IMAs are going to be a center for economic development for the county. I would prefer to not see single-family homes within the IMA. As he said, the infrastructure is going to be there to support higher density. We need higher density someplace in the county, and this seems to be a good place for those. I believe that a higher density would be a higher and better use of those, the utilities, the infrastructure, and so forth.
I 100% agree. I am just, what would you suggest that we do with the existing single-family homes? Just grandfather them in because they're already there?
Madam Chair, if
Yes.
I may address that entirely. That was a big focus of our discussion, especially from the public at the PDC. Existing uses would be protected. They would be able to develop by right or continue. And we're working with staff to find a solution for not deeming those properties non-conforming so that they're able to remodel or expand without limitations. That goes for both any use that's currently within the IMA that's in good standing, as well as any PUD that's in good standing. That we understand that PUDs are able to, or through its life cycle of development, often need to come back for an amendment, either changing a use or some kind of tweak, and we don't want to prohibit that from being able to happen because of the adoption of the IMA standards. So,
excellent, thank you.
yes, ma'am. So I'll just finish going through here. I have a few more slides for context, but number 5 is we've established thresholds for development. Anything above 5 units, 5,000 square feet, or 5 acres of development. Bless you. We are recommending these be the thresholds that require them to do the additional standards for landscaping and architectural standards and stuff that we have prescribed in the Land Development Code amendments. From the PDC, we talked about maybe lowering that 5,000 square feet because of certain uses that might want to come in. We also looked at a threshold for, pardon me 1 second, as I reference my notes. I'll get back to that in just a second. Number 6, confirm whether a mix of uses should be required. So if a development comes in, are you going to require it to include both commercial and residential? Personally, we find that very challenging. Typically, a developer focuses on one or the other. They either focus on apartments or retail or whatever component. But there may be a threshold. You know, if you have in a 300-unit apartment complex, you require some token level of commercial, or if you have 100,000 square feet of commercial, there's some token of residential. Just a decision point that we need your direction on. Okay. Then number 7, confirm if architectural standards should allow or should follow the town center plan overlays non-residential building design standards. So the town center plan overlay has a lot of content in it. It's very prescriptive, and we feel that that might be why you're not as familiar with it. It hasn't been utilized. But there are really good standards for non-residential buildings. So we would like to specifically look at those and carry over some of those aspects into this overlay. So, and that's a question if that seems sufficient. It addresses a lot of the points that we're looking for: the character, the sense of place, the you don't want big blank walls, and it brings it up to a higher standard than you would get if left unaddressed. So
great.
Madam Chair.
Okay.
On, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
Let's see, on number 6, to confirm whether mixed uses should be required. My question to you would be, what have you seen? We've heard arguments for both ways of this. And I think you make a great point that developers typically will specialize in either commercial or residential, but not necessarily both. But I would like to see us encourage some type of multifamily residential in those areas, similar to what we're seeing out at the shops at Black Diamond. We've got tremendous commercial growth right along the highway, but then I think there's 400 some odd multifamily units going in right behind that. Now, I believe those are different developers, but how do we encourage that type of development, that next layer back off of the main road should be multifamily.
Correct.
And as far as number 7 goes, I think this board has been pretty clear that we want to see a higher level of concentration on the aesthetics. More of a like a form-based code, if you will, making it look nice, making it look like the area. And if that's what you're proposing here, to have that higher level of not just aesthetics but efficiency, how things work there at these interchanges, and I think that's what this board will want to see.
Okay.
Commissioner Bays? Sorry, she was first, then you.
I absolutely agree with my colleague. I want no plastic white fences. That's a joke.
No, she's serious. It's
I
a
am
joke,
serious.
but she's serious.
Some of my concerns when I look at this, I do want consistency. I don't want everything to have a different view. One of the things that I brought up in briefing was
I'm very concerned about ingress, egress. A lot of times when I go to these newer developments, the cut for them, the width, you could barely get 2 trucks if they were 250 vehicles. They can't make, right, one's coming in, one's exiting. I want to make sure that we're not just putting, 20 pounds of stuff into a 2-pound bag. I want to make sure that we actually have roads that we can traverse on and be safe about it. Case in point, if you were in Homosassa at the Publix, you come off of Highway 19, you take that entrance into the 7-Eleven there. There's not enough room to get on and off the highway, plus you have to make that right and a left to get to Publix.
Okay.
And that's the kind of stuff that I want to avoid.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we have some really good clear-cut curbs and that we can access properly on the interiors. I also would like to see if we could take into consideration master stormwater as opposed to having independent DRAs for each one of them.
Yes,
If that's a possibility. Another thing, landscape. If we're going to talk about landscape, I would rather see more substantial landscape with watering or whatever, the sprinkler that's going to be maintained. Because if we're requiring that, I want it maintained.
Okay.
When I drive up and down and I look at the new developments now, I mean, they put it in, then they let it die. And then the second part of that would be when they put it in, don't put it under power lines if you're putting in canopy trees, or then they come in and hack them up and they look terrible.
Yes, ma'am.
And Florida friendly, add that too to the list. Are you done?
And the other thing I saw in here on 80% or more of the buffering shall be landscaped with a mix of shrubs, ground cover, and ornamental grasses. I can tell you when I drive around, I look at new development, they go to more ornamental grasses, and then it ends up looking very weedy and unkept. I would like to see more of a mix specifically so that they don't just end up using all ornamental grasses and then it has a deterioration. And then the other thing, if we can do on the drainage, I don't know if they can be turned into some kind of a feature as opposed, again, case in point, I go to 200 at Dillard's and I look at that big DRA on the front of the road and it looks like a hot mess. And
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know if that, it's overgrown and it's an eyesore.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
those are things that I'm looking at to try to improve on the aesthetics.
Thank you.
Commissioner Finnegan?
Well, wasn't going to be my first point, but since you mentioned it, I will back that up about the DRAs. Sometimes they can be turned into fountains. I like that idea. I like water features. I was going to give my opinion when you were asking about the commercial versus residential and separate them, and I agree with you. I don't know, how the property is laid out, if we could stagger that. So we would want, commercial on the road frontage, but then if it's residential, maybe have all the bottom floor of that be commercial. Does that make sense? Where you see in some other cities.
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know that we would need to require that behind, but then how do we keep it all from being just commercial if we are looking for multi-residential housing in that area?
Right.
So something to think about, but I wouldn't want it all being residential on the main road frontage. If it is, it would need to have first floor commercial.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yes.
I'll pick up where she left off. Is it true or false? Are people getting away from that model? Because personally, that model makes a lot of sense to me, as it apparently does to Commissioner Finnegan. But I thought I had heard something about, we're absolutely nothing like Gainesville, but Gainesville had built all that out, and they were having a lot of trouble, I think, renting the retail portion.
Retail's a challenge. There are certain hallmarks to retail that make them successful, that if aren't followed, make them, make that space hard to lease. Visibility is a big one. So we've addressed, the parking out front. That's another one to kind of limit the amount of parking that's in front of a retail establishment, but still want to give it that visibility. We've seen both. It's challenging to do the ground floor retail with apartments above. That's obviously a market thing. Typically done in really urban type settings, and certainly something we want to allow for and encourage. But typically you're going to see kind of a commercial area and then behind it a residential apartment complex or something to that nature. So you will tend to see along the 486 corridor the commercial components of that. And you see that trend now, right, on the north side near 491, and how you have the commercial kind of along the front with the residential to the rear. But we would like to encourage that it's walkable, and we think we've done that, and encourage that connectivity, the interaction between the residential and commercial. It's just very challenging to dictate that form and still be open to market and developers that are willing to come in and do something. They like to do something they know is going to be successful versus something new. And so the last thing we want to do is be so prescriptive that we, take it out of the market, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm fine with keeping it separate, as you said, doing commercial to the front and residential to the back. Few other points, going back to ornamental grasses and so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
And a sense of place and livability and all that. Some of the places that I visited, and we've seen it in our own, right where we are, just up the road here in Inverness, having park spaces and things to do for recreation. And some of the places I've seen that have really, really high traffic type places where people can come with their kids and play or do the chess game or checkers or what giant checkers. They use AstroTurf instead of grass, so that anything that we can do, this is the Nature Coast, and we already are on 1 time a week watering restrictions with no relief on that in sight ever. And so anything we can do to promote not using so many, fertilizer and herbicides and reducing water consumption, it can still be quite beautiful and much easier to maintain and easier on our environment would be wonderful.
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of the the existing single family homes, whatever we can do to wrap around them to help them feel a part of that would, in a design standpoint, I think would be really nice. So I'm glad to hear that we're carving that out for them, because it's already disruptive enough, everything that's going to be built up around them, and I hope that they end up enjoying it.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it gives them some more facilities to use and whatnot.
Right.
What is the largest square footage that you're, for retail, that you're thinking would potentially partake in this?
That's a good question.
We already have some behemoth big
Yeah.
boxes going in, and I'm not sure how many of those we need. And
Right. And we're not trying to exclude those, but we don't really see where they fit in kind of a town center walkable type.
Thank you. Yeah,
urban
there's no
fabric.
sense of place with a big box store. There really isn't.
Right.
So, okay, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I think you were motioning to me, Commissioner Bays?
More to a business point on this, we all know what's going on in the insurance world. And keeping commercial separate from retail, I think is smart, because you're asking for trouble finding carriers in today's market to do that. And then we all know it depends on what the commercial business is, what the insurance rates, and if you start mixing those, then it could have an overflow impact for the renter or the resident. So I would caution you to keep certain types of, if it's retail, it's retail.
Okay.
Because there's some carriers out there today, for instance, if it's a certain type of business, they don't want it and they don't want shared parking. They're not going to insure the renter of a commercial space because of the type of business that they're in that
Yeah.
can have overflows, implications into the parking area. And I'm just bringing that out. I'm sure you're aware of that, but I think that's worth noting as we're talking about this, because those are all financial impacts at the end of the day.
They're valid points. Yes.
And then going back, can you talk to us a little bit about the roads that, I mean, as far as what's going to be collector and arterial and?
Sure. And so I bring this slide up. The orange is the overall area of the IMA. And about mid-map is 486. It runs from left to right. Off of that, you see the gray area that is land owned by FDOT. And then south of that, well, that bold black line that comes in is the realignment of Knoll Road. And so that would be the primary access until further commercial access is provided to that area. Now, sanction, we would like to see extended east to 491 to have another kind of east-west connector. And we'd also like to see Malin connected from, I believe it's from
44, all the way through, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And so we would like to see those connections, but with what you've tasked us with, I don't see really a mechanism for us to require that unless, you know, we provide some separate provision to reserve right-of-way space for the county to then come in and provide those roads. We tried to limit requiring roads, and you know, especially a collector road would be a challenge for a development to come in unless there was some kind of cost share, some kind of development agreement with future development.
So is that black line the entrance into the employment center?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually have that too. I have several backup slides, but this is the employment center versus the mixed use area. With the mixed use predominantly east of the Suncoast, with the exception of LKQ and properties it's acquired.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
What's next?
That's all.
Yeah. You want to go back to your list of questions?
I'll circle back to the list of questions. So here in orange are feedback that we received. I have one more slide after this, but if there's any more input on any of these items, I'm happy to take it. If not, I think we touched on everything here, but just did want to share additional comments we heard at PDC, and I believe I've covered all this. There's a recommendation to buffer along the Suncoast Parkway. Absolutely, that was an oversight. It will be treated just like County Road 486, especially in that employment center area. Ensure adoption of 486 does not create legal non-conforming uses. I've addressed that. And we'll continue to work with staff for resolution, and similarly with the PUDs being able to modify or expand. And then
you mean existing PUDs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Those that have been approved
before the IMA.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And then last, just making sure that there's adequate access to the employment center, and I believe that Knoll Road will suffice.
Okay.
I just wanted to see I wasn't done looking at the slide before that one.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So my notes said that, you said that if we did not require a PUD, that we would have site plan approval?
Yes, it would still follow level 3 site plan approval where it would come before you for final approval. One of the comments we heard at PDC, and I thought we had prior to that, was to require a neighborhood workshop for developments of a certain threshold. And again, as I stated previously, we find that much more effective than hearing neighbor concerns at a public hearing when you're expected to make a decision. So if the public input process is important, that's one way to address it without having to go through the PUD process. They're just very costly, they're time consuming, and it's another challenge to development. When we feel that the land development code that we're providing is sufficient, as long as it meets those standards in the code, that it would be a quality development and you would have final say of that.
Madam Attorney, does that give us the same protection on what happens if we approve site plans versus a PUD?
I'm not aware of what the concept is that they're talking about. He just said that if it meets all the requirements of the land development code, most PUDs that you see have deviations from the land development code, and so
Okay.
that's why you're called on to make those calls whether or not their deviations are acceptable to you. So I'm not sure what it looks like because I haven't seen it. We haven't gotten that far to see what a site plan looks like as compared to a PUD.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I
That's all right.
I don't.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. It would follow, conceptually, right? It would follow the same process as a site plan approval. It would just be held to different standards in a land development code. You wouldn't be considering deviations. So by that measure, we don't feel that the PUD is necessary.
Okay.
The structure currently, and we would advocate for this being changed for the other IMAs, is that they have to go through the PUD process. So we see that. Madam Attorney.
Yeah, Madam Chair. So the PUDs that you see now are usually mixed with a zoning change or they're usually AA, Atlas Amendment, comp plan amendment, and a PUD all at the same time. So I think what he's suggesting is that there would be a different process maybe where if they comply with everything and they're not asking for any changes or deviation, no zoning changes, no comp plan changes, and no deviations, that would be just a site plan type review. But by right now, if their zoning is the way it's supposed to be, and if they're complying with all the provisions of the land development code, transportation, engineering, if they comply with all that, it doesn't even come before you because they are developing by right. So I'm not sure what this animal would look like because right now staff approves those without it coming to you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bays?
As it's evident by some of the people that said in this room, there's a lot of angst with the amount of growth that's going on in this community. We have residents, we have businesses, and then we have investors. And I guess what I'm looking for is I do like the idea of taking this out to the people and getting their input because I think that's the transparency. The people that live here, that have made an investment here, this is their home, and I think they need to have that input. Number two, I think it's indicative of the local government and this body and the staff. There's predictability. And meaning that governments follow rules that are clear and unambiguous. That gives those investors the ability to read the rules and know whether the local government will permit a developer proposal. So those are some of the things, and then the reliability. It's the commitment to follow through on what you've approved. So whether it's this IMA or one of the other two IMAs or whatever we're going to do going forward, I'm ready to get it right.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I find it confusing that we have 3 IMAs and we have 3 different consultants. It feels a little bit like patchwork.
Commissioner Kennard, I saw you do your, nope, you were turning your mic off, not on. Okay, you're good. Commissioner Finnegan? Okay. I agree that with Commissioner Bays that it would be a more community-oriented approach,
Okay.
which would be helpful. And none of us like quasi-judicial cases where we're not allowed to talk to anyone.
Nor do
I
we.
think I could speak for the board on that one. Okay, so you got a yes on one.
I think I'm clear.
Okay, you're clear on everything?
Yes, ma'am.
And where does LKQ fall in the industrial category?
They are in the employment center, and they'll be able to
They're okay?
continue to operate
Okay.
and expand.
What about number 4 and 5?
The number 4 is dealing with compatibility adjacent to single-family residential detached, and I heard that we want to have some protection there.
Okay. And 5?
Number 5.
You had said something about possibly reducing 5,000?
Right. So that's at this board's discretion. We can, again, have that conversation when this comes back to you in full form.
Okay.
And we'll carry on with this until then.
All right.
The one thought that escaped my mind was whether we would add a change of use. So changing the use of a specific structure, if that would be included as a threshold that would then trigger additional standards. That was something we heard from the PDC hearing. I'm not sure if it quite came from one of the committee members or not. But I don't know if you feel strongly one way or another if a change of use should be included on that.
So you're all good?
Yes,
Board,
ma'am.
anything further? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. It's now 2:13. It's time for our 140 public hearing. Commercial Development District, Crystal Ridge. What was that comment?
It's a bet we've got going on down here.
Am I not running fast enough for you?
Sorry. Ready. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Dugan. I'm with the law firm of Q-Tac Rock. And we represent the petitioner here, Crystal Ridge Property Group. Also with me today, in case there's any questions, is developer representatives, district manager, and a district engineer. Sorry, I jumped the gun on you. I got it, yeah. I got it, thank you. The purpose of today's hearing is to consider the establishment of the Crystal Ridge Community Development District. Prior to today's hearing, the petitioner provided all statutory required notice, including publication of this hearing 4 times in the Citrus County Chronicle. I want to thank county staff for working with us in getting petition filed in an orderly fashion and all material provided to the county to make sure we're making an informed decision today. So our goal here today is to give an overview of CDDs and also to go through the establishment process, and then specifically talk about the facilities and the improvements that this proposed district is planning for. So I have a presentation. It's probably a little bit overkill, but I'm going to go through some key points, and please interrupt me at any time with any questions. So Chapter 190 of Florida statutes governs all matters related to CDDs, including the establishment process. Essentially, CDDs are a local unit of government. Their primary function is to finance, construct public improvements, and also serve as the maintenance entity for those improvements.
Sir, I'm over here. Madam Chair, might I? The commissioners had pretty ample briefings on this, so you can kind of cut to
Breeze
the
through it?
chase.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure,
sir.
absolutely.
Just in the interest of time.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do so. Sorry. So the Crystal Ridge CDD is approximately 274 acres. It's between South Rock Crusher Road and the Gulf to Lakes Highway. Proposing to construct public roadways, surface water management, conservation areas, and recreation facilities. The total estimated cost of those improvements is approximately $53.8 million. Just to one point to reiterate here, the CDD does not make any decisions related to land use, permitting, zoning. All of those powers stay within the county, and the development project would have to come back to the county for any decision related to land use approval. But just cutting to the chase, the decision before you today is, just get through my whole presentation, is
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah. The establishment criteria set in Florida statute is asking the county to look at, one, whether the statements in the petition are true, whether the district is consistent with the applicable comp plans, whether the district is sufficiently sized to be a functional interrelated community, is the district the best alternative available, whether it's compatible with the existing facilities, infrastructure in the area, and if the area is serviceable by a governmental entity. In the interest of time, I just open it up to questions. Happy to answer anything.
Board? Comments, questions?
Great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
I know they've been deployed very successfully over in the villages, and it's a way to provide a lot of the amenities that people that live in the unincorporated area want. But as a small county government, we don't typically provide those.
Yes, ma'am. It's a way to, provide community, without using county funds. So we appreciate your consideration. Based on the evidence we presented, we just ask, we believe everything is submitted to establish the criteria that are laid out in Florida statute, and we'd ask for your approval.
Okay. Is this a voting item, Madam Attorney?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you, yes, ma'am. I guess open it up after you.
Oh, it's a reminder. I've got to flip to the right page. Sorry about that.
I think this is the first in Citrus County. There was one previously, but I don't think it
No vote,
took off.
presentation. There we go.
They did it with bank.
I've gotten to the correct page.
I was being polite.
Okay.
You're being brutally honest.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I think you have to open up to the public, don't you?
It doesn't say public hearing on this.
Oh, I thought you said you had to.
I said after. I'm sorry, the vote would, or excuse me, public would come up after you motion and vote.
Motion
Or
to
motion and
approve.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for item H2, and we will open it up to the public now. Thank you, sir. Would anybody like to speak only on this item? Community Development District for Crystal Ridge. Going once, going twice, seeing none. Any board comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks for
Thank
helping us try to get back on time.
Sure. Thanks so much.
Okay, we have a H3, 2 p.m. Look at us, we're only 19 behind now. Transportation concurrency. This will be no vote, presentation only.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I might I want to just read the ordinance title into the record that you previously voted on. I'm sorry, I didn't read it before you voted, but.
My apologies.
Mine as well, I apologize. You just voted on an ordinance establishing the Crystal Ridge Community Development District pursuant to Chapter 190 Florida statutes, naming the district, describing the external boundaries of the district, describing the functions and powers of the district, designating 5 persons to serve as the initial members of the district's Board of Supervisors, providing for conflicts, providing for modification that may arise from consideration at public hearing, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. If we get a second one, hopefully I'll remember the procedure on that. Mr. Landon?
Madam Chair, Board, happy to be here. Eric Landon, Growth Management. One one of your strategic items, targets for action in 2023 was concurrency. So I put together kind of a background of where we are, how we got here, and then some options moving forward on concurrency. Just for those that aren't familiar or those that have never heard of concurrency, I wanted to define it and give some of our acronyms out. We love having acronyms in growth management. But concurrency is a determination of existing infrastructure and its capacity to accommodate new development. That was Eric's definition. It's not in Webster's dictionary or anything. But basically, in short order, if a big box comes to town, what impact will they have on our infrastructure? And is there capacity to handle that impact? Specifically, in this case, we're talking about transportation infrastructure. Here we go. The other one is what people call LOS, level of service. And basically, it's you're grading your road on a scale of A to F. And I think of it as if you're a level of service A, when you're on the road, you can put your cruise control on and you don't have to worry about hitting the brakes. If you're a level of service F, you're considered failing and your foot is on the brake as much as it is on the gas. It's stop and go. And then finally, your capital improvement element, they call it the CIE, which is the capital projects identified in your budget. Sometimes it's CIE or CIP, capital improvement. I'll go to the next slide. Concurrency was established by the state many years ago, but it was made optional, I believe, in 2009. The Board of Commissioners opted out or made it optional in 2011, which means when big projects come in, it's not required of them. To reestablish it, which I think was one of the questions that came up originally, a level of service of our existing roads needs to be established. So we need to know where we are. I can't tell you, and I don't think anybody can, which roads are an A, which roads are an F, that we would have to have an engineering firm come in and do that.
Some are clearly an F.
Well, yeah, we can assume that, but, you know, F's, I guess maybe, I don't know the difference between a D minus and an F plus. So maybe navigating that fine line, we would take an engineering firm to come in and determine that. And then we would have to determine which roads are A's and F's. If any of them are F's and are failing, then we need to determine the cost of making those improvements and put it on the CIE. And then once those improvements are made, we would have to update our comprehensive plan moving forward. Any big projects that come in would have to fall into concurrency. So there's a couple of big hurdles that we have to accomplish. And the first one is determining where our roads are, our existing level of service. I don't think that's something that we can accomplish in-house. Like I say, I think we can have a consultant come in, and it's good information to have. I think the last one was done in 2015 for our comprehensive plan, and they made projections of which roads they anticipated failing in 2020. Now, this is before the expressway and before COVID and before the population boom. So we've had a lot of things change since 2015 when those numbers were last done. They gave us a list in 2015 of the roads that they anticipated, or the road segments that they anticipated failing, and this comes from our comprehensive plan. So there's about 8 to 10 road segments that in 2015 they anticipated being a level F in 2020. I don't know if that's the case or not. They may be far more than that. I don't know. But in order for us to kind of know where we're at, we need to determine the level of service. Moving forward, if no roads are failing, then great. Then we can take the steps necessary to implement concurrency. If there are roads that are failing, then we need to determine the cost of upgrading those roads and getting them out of Fs, and then put that in our 5-year CIE, make those improvements, and then we can begin the process of entering into concurrency. So assuming that the previous study is correct, it would be a big hill to climb to finance in 5 years' time all of those road improvements. And I'd be happy to
And
discuss
entering
any further.
concurrency, just for the public, means that the developers need to foot some of the bill.
Yeah, so for using our original example, a big box comes to town, they do a traffic analysis, they determine what impact their development would have on the road network.
Which would have to currently be an A.
Which would have to be something better than an F.
Okay.
And then they would have to put into escrow their fair share for their impact on the infrastructure. And then as the development happens around them, we would collect enough in escrow to make those traffic improvements and actually install them.
Okay.
Instead of the county footing the bill for all the improvements all the time.
Right.
Now, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. The county has made great strides in recent months to turn the tide on transportation and traffic improvements. One of them is we no longer accept residential roads, which takes a huge burden off of this board and the county in the future, where there's not roads that we're having to maintain. We've stopped. We kind of stopped the bleeding, as you could say. The other one is we've maxed out transportation impact fees just recently, and that actually went into effect earlier this month. So we're collecting more funds for future traffic improvements. And that has a big impact as we have a couple big boxes under construction, but many of them that we've approved in concept have not pulled permits or applied yet. As they pull permits, they will have to pay the full impact fees. So,
And again, for the public, impact fees can only be used to expand capacity, not to maintain current capacity.
correct. So we can't repave roads with impact fees, but we can expand the capacity of roads with impact fees. And the reason why that's important for commercial growth is they pay a certain amount per 1,000 square feet of space. So as these big boxes come in, you're going to capture millions of dollars. I think the study said $3 million a year in addition, based on the fact that you've maxed those out. So we have made improvements. We have made some progress. Concurrency, I don't know. I don't want to guesstimate what the cost of doing that would be. And if it's the will of the board to find that out and to push it one step further, then we can put out to bid some consultants to do a level of service study for us, and we can kind of find out where we are.
I'm very much in favor of it. The sooner we start capturing that, the better. Commissioner Kennard?
Eric, do you know if our neighboring counties currently have concurrency, or have they had it and got rid of it?
I think, from my understanding, it's pretty limited, those communities that still maintain it. I know Sumter County has a version of concurrency, but I don't have a percentage of who has it and who versus who does not. But I can certainly report that back to you.
Yeah, it's my understanding that a number of the counties have opted out of it, and so I would be very interested to see who has it, who doesn't, and there's some other things to consider before we just say, hey, it seems like a great idea to have developers pay for traffic improvements. Sure, it does, but there's a threshold. And if they can just not meet that threshold, if they can divide their project up into a couple smaller projects, then they still don't have to meet concurrency. So I would be concerned about that. You know, it's my understanding that on 44 and Croft, when that northwest corner was purchased for development, that there was a significant amount of money that was set aside for traffic improvements for that intersection, possibly for Croft Road, off-site improvements. Well, that was for Walmart and Lowe's, that area. Well, that money's still sitting there. We haven't done anything with it. Croft Road is still in very rough shape, and that didn't even make the list. So I'm not opposed to us looking at this, but it sounds to me like the first step is going to be hiring consultants, which I don't particularly care for. If the board decides to go down this road, pardon the pun, the consultants will come up with which roads are failing, and then this board has to fund bringing all of those roads up above failing. So we're expanding capacity on all of these roads that are failing, or maybe it's only half a dozen roads that are failing, when we're struggling to find money to repave the current lane miles that we have right now. So we don't have the money to repave the roads we've got now. We definitely don't have the money to expand capacity to bring these roads up from failing to even start with this process. So I'm willing to look at it, but I don't want to start spending money until we figure out where all this other money is going to come from, for the consultants, for expanding capacity, all of that.
And putting my planning hat on, you made another point in the beginning. Projects, if we have concurrency in place, projects may go where there is capacity instead of where we want them to go, where we have existing infrastructure. So if it means they don't have to chip in millions of dollars in road improvements, they may go a block or two the other direction where there more capacity exists. So I think sometimes it works for you, sometimes it works against you. Where do we want to push out and more into the suburbs, the larger developments, or do we want to have them within where there is more compact development?
We want them in our IMAs.
That's right.
Well, that was 2 rounds of comments that proves the rule law of unintended consequences. So thank you. Commissioner Bays?
Do you have to make, is there portions, can it be portions of roads, or does it have to take into account the entire road
The portions of roads.
that are failing? I mean, will
Yes,
they limit
yes.
like sections, or does it have to be?
Yes, so some roads are many, many miles, and there may only be certain sections that require improvements or that may be failing. 491 being an example of some places it's 4 lanes, some places it's 2 lanes. So I think the level of service that they anticipated failing was just certain segments of certain roads.
I think what I would like to see is some sort of staff analysis looking at where we're at today, where with our IMAs and where all this potential growth is headed, where we'd like to drive the growth, to kind of give us an idea what roads we're looking at, where we think the cost benefit analysis could potentially be, and then try to back into it to see if we think it would pay off. And I guess my last question to this, if a developer was trying to get ahead of the curve, is it at when they're approved? If you have a major development, is it when it's approved or when they're pulling permits?
It would be pulling permits for impact fees, but I think once and the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, I think once you get land use approval, you get certain vested rights for larger concepts like concurrency. And I don't know if you want to concur or okay. So I think it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking at concurrency, that would probably come at more of like a conceptual phase. But if you're talking about impact fees, that would be more of a pulling a permit timeline.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if concurrency, like with all this development that's being chattered about, are we too far down the tracks to benefit from it? Or is there still enough time to put this in place to reap some of the benefits?
I think those items that have already been before you and have received approval, it would likely be too late for those to
Well, I understand that, but I'm talking about all the potential stuff, like the IMA and the potential things that are coming along that, are we too far down the tracks that by the time we would actually do this, that there may not be a benefit?
Timeline-wise, say we decide to hire a consultant, and that consultant collects all the data, and maybe this time next year they bring you all the results, and you decide, yes, we want to revive these failing roads and bring them out of failing. Then we would probably have to go back and determine those costs and put it in a CIE, and then we have 5 years to make those improvements. So if we started today, I think it would be generous to say it would take 6 to 7 years before we were able to pull all those roads out of Fs. So in that window of time, all the improvements, all the developments that come in seeking approval, they would all be gaining vested rights over those years. So we would always be chasing what we just missed. Not to be too pessimistic, but over that 5-year period, other roads will continue to fail, so we'll always be chasing those F roads, and we can't begin collecting from private developments until we have no failing roads in the county. So it's it'll be a tough chase to get caught up where we're out of the hole or out of the ditch if we want to use a road.
Is it historically seen that whatever impact fees that the consultants say that we should charge, which we are now charging 100%, do those typically cover the expansion needs or no?
Oh, well, using 491, for example, I talked to Public Works earlier today, and just the 7-mile segment that they're planning is $163 million. So I wouldn't think that impact fees alone would cover the bill to expand the roadways. So we'll have to seek alternative funding resources, which I think a consultant is presenting you perhaps next month.
Okay. Yes.
Eric,
Hello.
a couple of questions. I know when we had discussed previously, you said even though they're state roads, we would be in charge of that expansion. How does that work? Would we collect the money and then give it to FDOT, and would they be responsible for the construction, or do they allow us to do construction on their roads?
The state statute for purposes of concurrency requires that the state roads are included, so it would be state and local roads that would have to be improved. As I understand it, FDOT would be responsible, would be the party to do that construction. So how we finance versus who builds it, I'm not sure of those actual logistics, but we would have to come up with the money.
And then for concurrency to be implemented, I don't know if this is a question for you or our attorney, do you have to do the entire county? Can you do sections, areas, that we know that growth is going, and say, okay, we're just going to map out this section and make sure these roads aren't a level F and install concurrency in this section?
For my reading of the statute, it would be countywide.
As I just stare at you blankly.
I haven't read the statute. I wasn't involved in the presentation, so I could certainly go look at it and
I feel like at this point, and when we say 7 years out and the growth is now, before we go down that road of putting taxpayer dollars on consultants, and then I asked that because I could see in sections we could probably do this. We could, if Madam Attorney could figure that out, but maybe you can't. It seems like that would be feasible. In sections, we could say these roads are all good. This is where we want development. This is where we can put concurrency. But if we have to maintain that for the entire county, I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to be wildly expensive, and I don't know that we have the money in the coffers to do it. Just my 2 cents. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Yes.
Eric, it wasn't part of the presentation or even the discussion today, but several years ago, we had a little bit of discussion, the board had a little bit of a discussion about mobility fees. Communities or counties that implement mobility fees, they do those instead of transportation impact fees, or the mobility fees used in conjunction with impact fees? Is that something that would need to be done countywide? Time-wise, implementing something like that, I would think would move along much faster than concurrency. I don't expect a lot of answers. I'm just kind of throwing it out there for maybe something to take a look at.
Okay, we'd be happy to look into it and bring it back to you.
All right, thank you.
Anything further? All right. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right. Chris Evans. Update on the Hurricane Idalia. Always good to see you, Chris.
You too, ma'am. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thanks for your patience.
No problem. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Howard and Ms. Lynn, again, thank you for having me. Mr. Howard asked me to do a presentation, and I believe we have the PowerPoint. I can use this. All right, very good. So Idalia, it occurred August 29th through August 30th. That was our local. Obviously, the storm was much sooner than that and passed us, but that was our region. It made landfall just north of Keaton Beach, Florida, in Taylor County. It was a Category 3 upon impact. And of course, this was, storm surge reached into homes and businesses as far south as Lee County, and the highest inundation on record for Cedar Key. This here shows the actual track that occurred for Hurricane Idalia. And I have a close-up here of the actual track. This storm was very unpredictable. It moved different ways. And there was a point where Citrus County was close to being with a hit. And we were very fortunate to not have a direct hit. Unfortunately, we did suffer damages from the storm. So here is a, let's see. Doug, is there any way you can actually click that? It actually is a GIF, so it should go in motion. Yeah, right on the screen. See if it'll move. No? Okay. So that was supposed to be animated, but that was Idalia. You can see the size of this storm. This here, unfortunately, was also supposed to be in motion, but it would show the deep convection that this storm had, and you would actually be able to see it coming up through the clouds as the storm was going up the coast. For our local impacts, we saw 62 miles per hour at the Marine Science Station, which is at the top end of the tropical storm force, 64 force for the highest wind gusts, and that was a Category 1. The winds were really on the coast. There was nothing really that came inland in Citrus County. So this was truly a surge event, not a wind event. Rainfall was 2 to 5 inches, depending on where in the county you were. And the peak water levels, from looking at the gauges, the National Weather Service came up between 4 to 7 feet. I will tell you that's a whole lot better than what was expected. We were expecting a whole lot higher surge, and that did not happen. So we're very blessed in that respect. We did activate to a full level 1 activation. We're currently on level 2, which is partial activation virtual. So we're just we're doing things through our web EOC system. We did order a Zone A evacuation, and I'll have a slide here in a second to show you that area. But it basically encompassed 18,000 people. We closed schools. We had 5 emergency shelters open originally. We actually closed 1 and consolidated them. We had opened up so many shelters because we knew that we were telling 18,000 people to leave. And we had only 200 people show up in shelters. So that leaves 2 options. They either left to go somewhere else or they stayed. And it was the latter. They stayed. We had a local state of emergency issued, and it's still in effect, and that will sunset this Sunday right after our disaster recovery center in Crystal River closes. And there was a curfew issued for 1 day. So if you look on your screen, everything in red was Zone A. Those are all the people that we asked to evacuate. And like I said, only 200 people took shelter. When you poll people, and we unofficially went out and talked to people on the west side, many of them, their response was, we've lived here our whole life. And we weren't going to leave. We were going to hold on and just see what happened. I have to tell you, that scares me. That scares me a lot because this storm could have been a whole lot worse, and it could have taken lives. And luckily, it did not. So we were fortunate in that respect. So here you can see a diagram, and this shows the inundation based on values that the National Weather Service gave us. So those values were given to Citrus County GIS, Cynthia Skellhorn, director, and she was able to plot out where the water most probably had come. Now, obviously, this is not an exact science, but it's close enough to show the potential of where the water had been. From a FEMA standpoint, we were declared for public assistance. That's for preparation, that's for debris, that's for everything. So we were very fortunate to have that, and we were declared for individual assistance. So that is anybody who and people get confused, they hear public and they think it's people. Public is the government or nonprofits or other groups like that. Individual assistance for actual individuals who live in homes. So we were declared that. And I will tell you normally what happens when a storm comes through. We have to go do a damage assessment. And when that damage assessment is done, we have to see if we meet the threshold. And then whether we qualify or not for individual or public assistance or whatever it may be. And in this case, we were granted it right off the bat, which was very good that we were able to move quickly. There is a downside, and that is actual seeing the damages. And I'll get to that in just a moment. Small Business Administration, There are people who get this confused. They think that you have to be a business to apply for that. That is not true. They will loan to individuals, low interest, long-term repayment. What was really neat about this SBA was that if you paid it back within the year, there was no interest you had to pay. It's pretty good. And the interest rate, like I said, is very low. Disaster survivor teams hit the ground very fast. I'm going to commend FEMA. They were here before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. And they were on the ground fast. And they went out door to door in our heavily damaged areas, and they tried to get people to sign up so they could apply for benefits to assist them in the recovery process. And then we did open up a disaster recovery center at the West Citrus Community Center. It is currently closed, and we have it moved to the Coastal Region Library, and that will close this Friday at the end of the day. So the question comes to overall impact. So we didn't get a chance to go out and do damage assessment because we were granted IA. But what I asked GIS to do was take the values that the National Weather Service gave us, and I said, can you take those values, look at the elevations of properties, and tell us how many homes you think were at least affected in some way, maybe just a couple inches of water. And in this case here, we came back with about 6,454 homes, a little over 6,000 homes that were affected. Actually, I'm sorry, 6,400 total. Residential, 72%, multifamily, 20, and commercial was 8. That's a lot of homes that were impacted during the storm. Crystal River, altogether, they had approximately 1,647 homes within their city limit. Again, a lot of homes impacted. From a damage standpoint, the county received damage at Fort Island Gulf Beach area, and the city of Crystal River, they had damage to their city hall, fire department, public works, infrastructure, parks, and some miscellaneous things. So the storm did do a significant amount of permanent damage. From a recovery standpoint, we had many groups that came into the county. That was, for example, Team Rubicon, the Southern Baptist. A lot of people came in. They were doing muck out. They were feeding. They were doing tremendous work. Other non-governmental organizations came in and helped. We had public-private partnerships, and then we had a disaster shelter opened up at the bin spot in Homosassa. That was a partnership, and Red Cross did a fantastic job manning that for us and taking care of the people that were there. I'm happy to say that this morning we had our long-term recovery group formation meeting, and we have a group that is forming. And people stepped up to the plate, and we are going to go ahead and move forward on that. So what is a long-term recovery group? In the immediate aftermath of a disaster, you have all these groups coming in to help. But you know what? They have to go home at some point, right? They have their own lives or whatever else. But there's still people who have unmet needs. And after all that help leaves, there has to be a coordinated effort. So a long-term recovery group acts as that conduit to help our citizens out in whether that means they find damage they need some help with. Maybe it's feeding, maybe it's whatever. And you have to remember, when you have a federal disaster, you have FEMA. If you don't, and I'll give you an example, it's the Crystal River tornadoes. We don't have individual assistance. If we had wildfires and people were displaced, we don't have sometimes, depending, you might have federal assistance, but you could have some low-level events that don't give you any FEMA help. So in that case, the long-term recovery group can help people. It's a conduit for money, donations, services, whatever that may be. And the United Way of Citrus County has stepped up to be the fiduciary agent for that. So we thank them and all those people today who participated in the meeting. That is just great news for our community. So again, people decided to ride it out. That's the bad part of this. Unfortunately, they're not heeding the warnings. All the warnings that say you could die, run from the water, hide from the wind, they're disregarding it. And it's not just here, it's other places too. Other counties saw little turnout for their shelters, and that does concern me. There are a number of people who do not have any insurance, and they are in repetitive loss areas. There are people who rent and have no renter's insurance. They believe that Many people believe that, well, if I don't have insurance, it's okay. FEMA's going to make me whole again. And that's just not the case. There's assistance that's provided out there, but it doesn't make people whole. And that's really, we have to have that message. We need to be prepared for all these kinds of things. And of course, this only reinforced the unpredictability of a storm. This storm was bearing down, really going to impact Citrus County, and luckily it moved away. But even then, we still had significant damage. So we do remind everybody we live in an all-hazard state. There are risks, and people need to take action. So one of the benefits this year that we had was the DOT cameras. And as Highway 19 finishes, there will be more cameras coming online. Where this was an advantage is we could actually see the water coming in, and this was taken early morning. And at this point, we didn't have any water really coming across in this photo, but this was a great picture for us to see what was happening. And we had these videos up in our multi-agency coordination center in Lecanto. Here's a picture of Highway 19 at Northeast 5th, and that's the Wawa. You can see water at this point is still on the roadway. Here's a dumpster floating down the highway. Lots of debris was moved. And another photo. And this is one of the roadways out. I believe this is Ozello Trail, and you can see the amount of water that had come up along that. And I just threw this in because I thought you might find this interesting to see what happened in other areas. This is Cedar Key. They got heavily hit, lots of damage. It's just a couple photos that were captured off some of the video that was being recorded. This on the left is Bayshore Boulevard down in Tampa, the convention center, and Tampa General Hospital. So it was catastrophic along the entire coast. This is Sarasota, top left, Fort Myers Beach, and then Punta Gorda on Marion Avenue. So after I put this presentation together and provided this to be ready for this meeting, I did get some updated numbers that I thought you might be interested in. So FEMA, as of Sunday, had 2,735 valid registrations to their system. These are residents who applied for individuals and households. At this point, FEMA put out over $3 million in repairs and over $1 million in rental amount. And then there's other numbers that they put in there, but total to date, FEMA has pushed out for just Citrus County, $15,566,000. So FEMA has been very receptive in providing that. And here's the last thing that I got. I also asked GIS to do one last thing for me. I said, if you take the minimum that we're talking about of those homes that were impacted to some degree, can you give me some number of what the value of damage might be, at least a ballpark? And it came out to $282 million in damages to our folks along the coast. So, and I believe Hurricane Hermine was $102 million. So definitely a great loss to a lot of people, this storm did. And while I have you, I have some information on the Crystal River tornado that I thought you might find interesting. This storm finally was rated as EF2 with peak winds at 125 miles per hour. The path length was 5.59 miles. The path width was 300 yards. They're saying that it likely began as a tornado or tornadic waterspout. Inaccessible terrain limited the start point on radar. Tornado then tracked northeast near the Paradise Point community, then continued across Highway 19 and 44 before lifting shortly thereafter northeast of the city. What I find amazing is that the National Weather Service saw the tornado pick up at 6,000 feet. Because of our distance from the radar in Ruskin and the curvature of the earth, the radar doesn't have a good picture of Citrus County. It only starts at a certain level. It's about 6,000 in this case. They saw the tornado. They were actually able to see it up to 14,000 feet. And there was a debris ball in there. So they knew when they saw that debris ball, it was on the ground and it was doing damage. And I talked to somebody in Dunellen who said, yeah, I had debris in my yard from the people in Crystal River. So you can see the Mother Nature's potential and the ability of destruction. And that is why everybody needs to be prepared for all kinds of events. And lastly, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Howard and his staff. He was an invaluable partner in this. When he says, get it done, he means get it done, because we couldn't have done what we did as a county. So, Mr. Howard, thank you so much for that.
Just as well the sheriff's office and all the staff and everybody like that. I got a couple statistics. 25,000 cubic yards of debris. That was the final number today that I got, not including Crystal River and Inverness and others. That's a lot. And also, one thing we had a good discussion on a debrief is creating one landing page for all communications. So I know Chris is working on that, and everybody's open to that, because I think that's an issue that all the public needs to have one landing page to get all the information. So we're going to work on that. I think that'll be well received, but that's going to be, I think, that was the biggest takeaway I had for communications, to make sure that we're broadcasting unified messaging. Everybody's trying to do that, but I think that's a great opportunity for process improvement. And again, thank you for your leadership. A lot of long nights and a lot of days, but staff did an amazing job. Everybody working together was amazing. So it's Team Citrus.
And that is, certainly, it was a definite, there are any storm, you have things that you learn and that you can improve on. And we have certainly looked at our performance as a county and as emergency management, and we are coming up with ways to improve things. And one of those things that was recommended was that landing page, and it's actually in the design phase right now. So it will be a one-stop shop for evacuations, sheltering, long-term recovery, FEMA, power, whatever it may be. So I think that's going to help a lot of people have a better idea of what's happening in the county and more concise messaging.
And poor Crystal River. I mean, just recovering from Adelia, and that was unbelievable.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Any questions that I might?
Thank you for all your help and your service.
Chair.
Yes.
Chris, thanks for being here. No questions, just some comments, and I hope that you don't take this personally. It's not meant that way. I will tell you what I have heard from my district, from a number of people over there, is that there was before the storm, during and after, that there was a dearth of information, that it was bits and pieces that they were getting, mostly from social media, but not from us. I mean, government, EOC, in a timely manner to make decisions. Your comment about people not evacuating, I've heard that before at FAC when I was down just for a short period of time at Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. That was something that was talked about down there. And quite frankly, I think we've got to look at why are they not evacuating? And the reason is they don't believe us. They don't believe the models. I hate to say that it's crying wolf too many times, because when that one time does come and we get 12 feet of surge, which I just don't know that that's going to happen. But the bottom line is they don't believe us. And so they're not going to uproot out of their homes and go seek shelter. So I think that's the issue we need to address is, are these models right? There was, going back several years ago, we were evacuating Sugar Mill Woods. We were evacuating folks well on the other side of Highway 19, telling them to get out of their homes. I think we've got to look at why, are these models badly flawed in the prediction of storm surge? And maybe we're just regurgitating what we're hearing from the National Hurricane Center, but those are questions that need to be asked of them. You're throwing these models out here, and quite frankly, it's endangering people's lives, because people are going to continue to stay home because they don't believe the information they got from the last storm. I'm glad to hear that there's a splash page in the works. I hope that ultimately it contains all the information that's needed. I've said a couple times before now, I think Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council is the organization to look to carry the lantern on this, because their membership is all up and down the coast of the west coast of Florida. So they've got a lot of communities involved, and it's a page that needs to be written at, you know, whatever the newspapers are written at. Is that an 8th grade level, a 9th grade level, so that people can go there. I've still got folks over in Crystal River who have no idea where to look at for possibly grants for raising their house, or different flood mitigation. You know, we had a presentation here. I was very thankful for the presentation. Lots of good information, but it sounded extraordinarily bureaucratic. If somebody would have stopped me 5 minutes after that presentation and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about raising my house. What do I need to do?" I mean, I'd have gone back through my stack of notes and tried to figure it out for them. But there needs to be a source, an information source, a web page they can go to and look at options A, B, and C are written in an understandable language. Maybe it takes the professionals in the room to come up with the ideas, and then go hire some middle schoolers to write the data on there, so that it's palpable to people. Not that that's where everybody's so many people's level is at, but when they're stressed, when they're worried about their home that was just washed away or flooded, they need something that's very, very easy to understand, and then some web links to get them directly to people who can help them out. Lastly, and I'll leave with this, and I will reach out to Bill Arakis' office about it. The SBA procedure, the SBA application procedure, is absolutely miserable. That is, I have heard that people's, you know, applications are getting bumped out or getting withdrawn, or they just gave up on it altogether because the amount of data being requested was more hassle than what it was worth. And these are people looking to possibly rebuild their home, you know, to build up and so forth. That wasn't the last thing. I got one more note I want to talk about. There had to have been 8 or 9, just in our little neighborhood alone, 8 or 9 restoration companies that were in literally the day right after the water left. Came in, started tearing out drywall, and then you start hearing the stories days later of how badly the homeowners were skinned by these companies. You know, they leave with all of their insurance money, walls are torn out, the company's gone, and they've got nothing left. That happened more than I've heard it, more than a handful of times. Maybe that's something that the sheriff's office and our building department need to get together on and see who's going to be allowed to do business in the community. Because there's some big names that have been accused of some pretty horrendous things at people's worst hour in their homes. That's all. Thank you again for being here, Chris. It wasn't directed at you personally.
No, not at all. And I do appreciate all your comments. And certainly there are things that can be improved in a lot of different processes. I would say this, that if there is a concern that people were taken by companies, they need to come forward and make a report, because there is the potential that if there is a pattern or something along those lines, there could be criminal charges. I don't know, I don't know what the circumstances are, but if people are defrauding people with the criminal intent, there may be things that can be done. So I would encourage them to, and when they come to you, please tell them to report it to us, because they can do that. And they can also do that online. They can do a fraud report through our website, which also would save them a lot of time having to call or go somewhere. And that goes and gets reviewed and goes to a detective.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I appreciate Commissioner Kennard's comments. Little perplexing. I went on to the FEMA map, and so there's 11,539 properties in our county that would be required to have flood. We only have 4,856 flood policies. So I don't know if that has a bearing. I mean, we know that you're only required to have flood if you have a mortgage, that type thing.
The county has a flood management coordinator. She may have more information on that.
That's coming from her.
Okay.
But, you know, for the public, I think it's important for them to know that back in 2012, we had the Bigger Water Act, and there was a lot of unintended consequences for flood policies. It became unaffordable. They put some regulations in place, and then in 2014, they changed it to try to make it more affordable. And we've had 25, since that time, 25 short-term reauthorizations for flood. They haven't done any long, I mean, we keep going through this process of reauthorizing flood, but it's always for a short window of time. But in 2017, flood was $16 billion in debt that they forgave. The federal government forgave the $16 billion in flood. Today, we're $20.5 billion in debt again. So I think, you know, public needs to understand. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're taxpayers. We cover that. So we need to have some real honest conversations about what's going on. And when we are having these situations that are in high coastal flood zones, we need to have more stringent rebuilding codes that it can withstand these if that comes to that point, if they're coming in and tearing them down and rebuilding. So I appreciate what you're saying. I hope there was some lessons learned out of this, and that we, if we did take that direct impact, what is our plan of action? Have we learned enough lessons to know how to deploy and to get ourselves back up so that we can turn the economic engine back on?
I think we have learned some lessons, certainly, for sure. You know,
But I think part of that job is for us to identify some of those vulnerable assets that, you know, what if we had a bridge that got taken out? You know, what if we had some major disaster that, how do we get back up? Have we done a checklist that gets us back operating as quickly as possible?
Yes. And I agree with the codes. We saw after Andrew, codes changed and codes have gotten better. And I can tell you that after the tornado hit Crystal River, I was able to take photos of some of the roofs that were, and the gable ends that were affected on older homes that weren't up to new code. And you might say, well, that's just a tornado. Well, in a hurricane, we're still going to have those winds or greater, and those buildings will be compromised. And it just shows you that having those new codes and having structures, and we can see it. You can drive down the street. We saw it down in Ian, Michael. You can drive down the street and say, old code, new code, old code, new code. So strong codes are definitely something that we all need to reinforce.
All done? Mm-hmm. You have anything? Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. Okay, everyone. It is 3:08, and we are now done with all of our presentations, so we will open to the public. Thank you so much for your patience. Very much appreciated. And by the way, when we take breaks, there's actually a speaker in the back, so when we take a break, we're still hearing you.
Hi, my name is Roman Rudnicki. I'm a resident of the area for the last 4 years. This is like a last-minute request somebody made to talk about situation at the Central Ridge Park. We call ourselves pickleball players. Hope that I promise this is going to be short compared with these things that we just heard. So I'll be very brief. But the pickleball phenomenon is a very interesting one. There is a conversion going on in the US from tennis to, as the people age, from tennis to pickleball. And in our case, one of the representatives from here, from the county, talking to some players, some probably limited group, came up with an idea to convert tennis court fully to pickleball. And there's another group which we represent that thinks that the change is too radical. There's still people that want to see the tennis courts, and in our location, which is Central Ridge Park, there seemed to be a movement from the county to convert. And we're here to say that don't know exactly how much of a public survey, opinion survey was done, but there is a possibility that it's being rushed. So our suggestion is have it revisited. I know there is a financial pressure from maybe because of budget end of the year or whatever. We have some, just to make it simple, we have some layouts here and we did some research and cost analysis. So whoever is doing that, we'd like to share that and just pose the question, should this conversion be done in somewhat different fashion? Specific, there is an idea that I have to, at this location, there's 2 courts that have been repainted to play pickleball, sorry. However, now we're proposing to maintain 1 tennis courts and convert the other side to pickleball, simple. So, but I think I'm saying this in the interest of, yes, yeah. So yeah, we'll end up with 5 pickleball courts and 1 tennis court, hopefully.
I'm sorry.
Yes, but I don't want to take too much time. Probably my 3 minutes is up.
Yes, it
All
is.
right?
Thank
Okay,
you.
well,
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, but look forward to
I'm sorry.
hearing the comments.
Can somebody from staff just get his number so that they can
Okay.
follow up?
Which department?
Eric.
Eric, can you get his number? Or follow up with him?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Good afternoon. Donald Applegate, Citrus County. You passed on budget resolutions, E3. For Southwest Florida Water Management District, Sugar Mill Woods Golf Course Reuse Project. I didn't hear about it or read about it. You know how much the grant was?
Are you talking about today's agenda, E3?
Yes.
We haven't voted on that yet.
Oh, you didn't? You
No,
just
no,
bought
no,
it?
No, we skipped back and forth. We had time certain, so we had to go to that. Now we're back
Okay,
at,
so you're gonna go back to that?
we're back to D.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Now remember, it amplifies up here, so be gentle with us, okay?
I will try.
He uses his outdoor voice.
What can I say? This is a New York City cab driver, that happens. Stephen Schwartz, Pine Ridge. As I wrote this before the meeting, some of my questions have been answered. Thank you, Rebecca Bays, for being at the forefront of some of those questions during the presentation. Commissioners, after Hurricane Adelia, I put a Facebook post out telling residents not to let their guard down, as I felt another severe storm was coming. It didn't come as a hurricane, but a tornado, and once again wreaked havoc on Citrus County. I see another storm coming in the Gulf soon. It may only remain there this season. I would hope that these storms, which will be more frequent in years to come, will be an exacerbation by what is to come by putting concrete over Mother Earth. We can't stop growth, especially with all the publicity Citrus County is putting out, but it can be minimized by building mostly 1-acre lots and not allowing clear cutting on any new construction. I have been asking numerous questions over many board meetings that have gone unanswered to date. Why are we building so quickly? Are all aspects of infrastructure going to be in place, or will we be playing catch-up always. How is raw sewage getting into the rivers, and are the sewers county-owned? Is any of the new construction planned for affordable housing that workers in the service industry can afford? What happened to the artifacts that were found in the ravine at Lecanto Highway and US 19? What will they go on display soon? Were there any artifacts found on the Norval Bryant Lecanto Highway? Did Mr. Dix buy the golf course in an unethical manner, preventing others from bidding at auction? Is it true that you can trust him or his attorney? Where it's stated that the moving party's attorney gets unlimited time and you get limited opposing party attorney to 5 minutes. Will you be doing what the majority of the people want or what the developers are requesting? Will we still be considered the nature coast? To manage, I would like to point out the mission to the commissioners. To manage growth so you don't overtax any of the infrastructure or negative impact our mom and pop establishments. Foster prosperity by prioritizing the protection of environmental assets that all nature, including but not limited to our waterways and water is protected. The development of infrastructure. I know I'm finished, but I would like to just do one thing, and that's, and I am,
Stephen, you're
and
killing me,
because
man.
we're getting,
This
I would
rule-
like to take
Rules are
with
rules.
our intent to send Ms. Schlebeck healing and protective energies for a speedy recovery.
Okay, I'll
Thank
let you
you
go
for the
over for that one,
additional
but
time.
try to stay by the
No, I
rules,
normally
please.
do, and you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane
I need an
Sal.
air
Wait,
horn up here.
you've
Oh, wait,
already
we
been
have
here.
one.
I can only speak once?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, man.
There's another open to the public at the end.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If everybody got to speak as many times as they want, you can imagine how long our meetings would go. Would anyone else like to speak at this open to the public? Going once, going twice? All right, seeing none. Board, what's your pleasure on E? Moving on to regular business.
Motion to approve E1 through D.
A through D?
Get up, what did I say?
You just left off A.
Oh, sure. We'll do all the
E1
way through A through D.
A through D?
Yeah.
So there was a motion, who seconded?
Second
Okay, Commissioner Bays is the second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, E2.
Motion to approve E2.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Finnegan, second by Commissioner Bays. Any,
Is that A and B?
there is an A and B, is that A and B? I should keep my reading glasses on.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Yes, A and B.
Second.
We all need reading glasses. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, E3 is straight up with no letters.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any public comment on E3? Any board discussion? Seeing none?
Oh, he's. I
Sorry,
think he
somebody,
has-
is somebody in motion for E3?
Yep. Yes.
Yes. My apologies, I was thinking it was E4, but that's definitely not what you were concerned about. Didn't want to cut you off.
That's okay. Don Applegate, Citrus County. Could you tell me how much the grants were for the golf course reuse project?
Well, we'll answer your question. Is that the only question you have?
Huh?
Okay, then have a seat and we'll get an answer for you. Mr. Cheek?
Okay, thank you.
Come on up.
I believe this just adopts the additional million that we got. I don't remember how much we actually have for the whole project. I think it's on the order of 6 million.
So roughly 6 million, but this is approving the last million.
Correct.
Okay.
So we amended that grant agreement.
Wasn't the first grant just under 4 million and then you got another million on top of that?
Yeah, I'll get you the right number. It's in that ballpark, 5 or 6 million. But this just adopts the additional million that we just got.
If she's right, I'm going to be impressed with her memory.
Yeah, no doubt.
I believe I am right. It's like, the first one's just shy of 4, so I thought it was like 3.9 something something, which I don't remember, but I knew it was just shy of 4, and then we got the extra million on top of that.
Okay.
Outstanding. And good work as usual. Thank you, Mr. Cheek.
You're welcome.
Any further public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E4,
Motion to approve.
Citrus Springs
A and B.
2022
Second.
Assessment Area A and B. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bays, second by Commissioner Kennard. Any public comment? Seeing none, any board discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Kind of sad about E5.
Motion to approve E5.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E6,
Motion to approve E6.
Veterans Administration Lease Agreement. So we have a
Second.
motion and a second by Commissioner Bays. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E7, Notice of Intent to Use the Uniform Method of Collecting Non-ad valorem Assessments.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E8, ITB 21-137 CDBG TCG Sewer Project Release of Retainage.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Madam Chair, could you read that again, please?
Are you messing with me? Do I legally have to read these? I'm just going to ask because I've read some and haven't read others.
Got a little tongue.
Then I'm
twister
just going to
there.
do E8. Thank you, Commissioner Kennard. I appreciate it. Okay, where were we? We have a motion by
Me.
Commissioner Bays. Were you the second?
I think so.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Finnegan. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Chair,
Yes.
it was 3,918 and then 1 million. So 4
Check
million
out
nine.
the big
4
memory
million
on
918.
Diana. Good job.
Don't question my memory.
I was saving Ken.
Yeah, that's correct. But there's another 2
Thank
million
you.
from Swift Mud for a total of 6 million to 2,000. So we
you're
were both right.
Both right.
Fantastic.
It's a beautiful day
Thank
when
you.
two people have a conflicting opinion and they're both right. Okay. All right. What's your pleasure on E9?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E10, and there are letters on this one, folks.
Motion to
Stay
approve
sharp.
E10, A, and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E11,
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E12,
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E13,
Motion to approve.
all right, pick one. Who's the first?
I'll
She can
second.
have it.
Okay, first by Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Bays. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E14.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E15.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bays, a second by Commissioner Kennard. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. E16, and there are
Motion
letters.
to approve A, B, and C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Any, come on up, Stephen.
Stephen Schwartz, Pine Ridge. The only thing I'd just like to add, has the public been notified that the time frame is running out? I believe November something, to be able to put in for any FEMA that they want to do. Their applications have to be in by the middle of November.
Okay, thank you. Staff, and take note, Mike Bates and staff. Yes? People have been notified?
Yeah, there's been some communication. We'll just reinforce it. We'll make sure it's echoed.
Okay, thank you. You got the shout out? All right. Where were we? That was open to the public. Anybody else? All right. Any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bless you. E17.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Let's see, we have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and second by Commissioner Bays. It's a tie. Any public comment? Any board discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, I think we're going to slow the roll here. E18. Madam Attorney, are you doing this or Mr. Howard?
We did it together.
Check out all the teamwork today.
We had the video got deleted. We were skipping at this moment, but it got
Yeah.
deleted.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
It was a really good video,
It was
though.
great.
Y'all are going to be sorry you missed it.
Okay.
So anyway, getting to the agenda item for E18. The county, the agenda memo pretty much summarizes the county received 3 offers and 1 letter of intent from your request to receive those on or before September 28th of 2023. Of the 3 that were submitted, the 3 offers that were submitted, you had Bravo Land Group, Nicholas E. Tamposi, and James Gissy. Their summary of those 3 offers is on page 709 of your agenda materials. It was Bravo Land Group with $6 million, Nicholas E. Tamposi with $5,700,000, and then James L. Gissy with $5,500,000. We've summarized on that document some of the more salient points that we believe the board would be interested in, most notably the feasibility study and the length of time for the due diligence or feasibility study. Just today, we learned that Mr. Tamposi has withdrawn his offer. So we were looking
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion this board direct Ms. Lynn and Mr. Howard to begin or continue negotiations with Bravo Group.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Attorney, do you have anything else that you need
No,
to add,
ma'am.
or are we just moving on?
No, ma'am,
Okay.
we're good.
All right.
I wonder who's got the over-under.
You're killing me, man. Would anyone like to speak on this item, selling Betts Farm?
I was referring to the time of the meeting when I said over-under, just so no one doesn't misunderstand that.
So I'm curious, is the Betty lie that I run a fast meeting or no?
I'm not sure.
Just
Welcome,
cutting out the
Tito.
fluff
Madam
today.
Chair and Commissioners, Ernesto Rubio, President of Citrus County. The only thing I'd like to remind when you're reviewing the bids and the offers from that is please remember to try to build a community that is healthy for us, that has sidewalks, lights, infrastructure, and a walking community. So I would appreciate if you could make sure that you include that in your negotiations. So thank you.
And don't forget Florida-friendly landscaping, which is one of my
Absolutely.
favorites.
Yeah, because we
And
need to
black
reduce
wrought
our
iron
water.
fences.
And no white fences.
Okay, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tito.
No white plastic fences.
One of the offers, the proposed development, actually the one that you're speaking of, has a description of the project that is envisioned, and I think Mr. Rubio would be quite impressed with the proposed development criteria that's included. I don't know that it says health, but it's got a lot of good things in there.
There's no mention of a white fence either.
I don't think it even says fence.
I know. It's a plus.
Would anyone else like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, any board discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, Mr. Howard.
Just a couple things. I'm not going to read verbatim, but we did update the residential road resurfacing. At the workshop, staff was given direction to prepare a list of roads to be resurfaced based on 7 to 10 rating with density and funding distributed based on miles in each district. That's been included on in the commissioner's list. We're targeting January for the bids to go out for that, so we'll keep you posted on that. Obviously, it's budgeted at $13 million. The Betts Farm, you just got updated on that. We'll update that accordingly. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you.
And the next item is GEU. Do you have anything else?
Nothing further.
Okay. We've done our public hearings, presentations. Moving on to I-1. Board?
Appointments, wastewater? I mean, I wrote some stuff down. I have to.
Sorry, this is what happens when we move through stuff really fast. We have to catch up to where we are.
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Happy to hear the rest of the board. I'm not familiar with this board or the members, but just looking at the information that was given to us, I wrote a few notes for Haber in the tech position, Matherson in the lay position, and Moore as an alternate.
Second.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak from open to the public? We have a motion and a second. Seeing none, any board discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and thanks to everyone for submitting an application. I-2, we are announcing Affordable Housing Advisory Committee Board vacancies. Mr. Howard, would you like to handle that?
Yes, this is the announcement of terms of membership available and taking of applications on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. The new terms will be for 2 years, beginning on February 1st, 2024, and ending on January 31st, 2026. Applications and resumes are requested by November 30th, 2023. And this is just an announcement only for vacancies.
Super. Any board comment? All right, moving on.
Chair?
Yes?
Can I ask for clarification on the motion for I-1? I only heard the alternate for Moore. Was there another?
Would you like me to restate that?
Yes, please.
I wrote notes on the last names. Haber in the tech position, Matherson in the lay position, Moore in the alternate
Perfect,
position.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Super, thank you. Committee reports, Commissioner Kennard.
Hang on just a second. It looks to me like Haber, I think that he applied for the alternate position.
Are you 100% positive? I don't have mine up, but I'm usually a good note taker.
Robert
It shows all
Haber.
three? Yeah. Thank you.
Believe he Okay.
Yeah, the document I've been given as the chair says one technical member, Haber or Moore, one lay
Okay.
member, Haber, Moore, Matherson, Hedquist, Kraus. I hopefully didn't butcher any of their names.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No, no worries. It's really good to double check this stuff because then we don't have to redo it.
You haven't learned not to check my memory today, Commissioner.
Man, she's batting 1,000 today.
You see what I have to put up with up here?
Super brain juice or something.
Commissioner Kennard, committee
Nothing.
reports? Commissioner Bays?
Yep.
Well, I would like to talk about what Commissioner Bays and I went through last week. We did advanced commissioner training, and that was really cool. I've done a Myers-Briggs before, but it's been quite a few years, and we did a long facilitated discussion on our Myers-Briggs reports, and there was just a really interesting discussion, and it was fascinating to see what Rebecca's, and I learned how to deal with introverts. I'm an extrovert, give them time to respond, but that also let me know why I'm always, or almost always, very impressed with what comes out of Commissioner Bay's mouth when she does choose to speak, because she waits and lines up all of her ammunition and does a really good job with it. Extroverts like me tend to think out loud, and we're more comfortable being messy as we speak and get there eventually. So that was just really cool stuff. And the other thing was there's a book called The H Factor, which talks about humility and leadership. And the professor at the University of Florida led this session, and he gave us all a copy of the book. I can't wait to read it, but it talks about how important, especially in this day and age of social media, celebrating people thinking they're all that, to lead with humility, and leads for much better outcomes in your leadership. So I was really impressed with the 2 days at University of Florida. And Commissioner Finnegan, do you have any committee reports? All righty. All right, Commissioner, and you have nothing for District 2?
Correct.
All right, Commissioner Kennard, take it away.
Yeah, this is an initiative that this board has heard a little bit about, once or twice for sure. But I'm ready to see us start moving this forward. And what's going on is Ken Frank, I'm going to ask him to come up here, and just, you can go ahead and come on up. He's got a presentation to give, and then I will give you the ask at the end of it. It's nothing financial, just simply asking for our county administrator to work with the city manager in developing an MOU to allow the city to take the lead in applying for grant money for engineering and design for expanding a county boat ramp. I mean, I see positives all over it. So go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennard.
Welcome, Mr. Frank.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Madam Attorney, Mr. Administrator, thank you for allowing me to be here. Talking about a potential partnership between the city, Crystal River, and Citrus County. Before I get started, I just want to pay homage to an existing partnership, and that was the storm response. I mean, we have gotten double walloped in the past month, and I just could not thank the city or the county staff enough for your helping us. I mean, it was 2 hours after the tornado hit at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, your road maintenance director is sitting side by side with my staff on beginning the cleanup from that storm. And I've actually got a picture of him working side by side with our crews putting up barricades. So thank you very much. And Commissioner Kennard, I could not agree more. We could do a better job as government with these evacuations. Case in point, when Hurricane Ian came through, anybody that's been here for any length of time realized we're on the clean side of the storm. We're telling everybody there's going to be 17 foot of storm surge when, in fact, we probably had one of the lowest tides on record in Kings Bay, and there's manatees flopping around out there. It's hard to come back the next time and tell them, hey, this one's real. So thank you for bringing that forward, and I'd be welcome the opportunity to help get us to that level on that. So back to where we are. So the Fort Island Trail proposal that I want to bring forward, and I talked to you guys about it last year. We've got some common issues with access to our waterways, and in particular in Crystal River, the city's nearing the completion of permitting for the Kings Bay Riverwalk. And what that's going to do is close down one of our local boat ramps. Anybody that's been here any length of time, it's the old Knox Bait Boat House. It's on Northeast 3rd Avenue. It's not a heavily used ramp, but it is going to get closed down. And we need to find a home for that capacity that we're going to be taking away. We expect the Riverwalk to be, we're in the permitting right now, and we expect to be under bidding, hopefully during next manatee season, And then construction would commence at the end of the manatee season because we cannot construct over the water during the manatee season. Includes a closure of Northeast Third Boat Ramp. The city did approach the state to put that at the old shrimp docks, at the FDEP facility at the end of down the river a little bit. They did not like that. They're denied that. So I was doing some soul searching and trying to find out where can we buy back some of that capacity, and that's where the Fort Island Trail Park came up. And if you look at that park, this is an aerial. I'm just going to go through a sequence of slides here that kind of illustrate what I'm proposing to the county. Fort Island Trail Boat Ramp is located about halfway out Fort Island Trail before you get to the beach. It's 100% owned by the county. It's an existing boat ramp facility. And what you've got is about parking there for, there's 20 slots there and there's another 20 slots. But what happens during any busy weekend, anybody that's been out there, cars are parking all over the place, haphazard. It's almost dangerous at some points because people are walking down Fort Island Trail to get there. So why is that a problem? Why can't we fix it? So the big problem is we can fix it, but we have an issue with addiction.
Can I interrupt you for
Yes.
just a minute? Just for folks up here or anybody in the audience, go back to the right there, that one.
Yes.
On a busy weekend, what happens is those 40 slots get filled up, and then people are pulling their vehicles, many with trailers, in amongst all those trees in the green circle area that leads down to the fishing pier. When that area fills up, that bottom left corner, that road, that access road goes out to Fort Island Trail. They park on both sides of that road, not really a right of way, but just the grass just barely pulling off of the road there. When that fills up, they push out onto Fort Island Trail and they start lining up down Fort Island Trail. I mean, that's the sequence. It's just depending on what time of day you get there, that's how that place fills up. It all starts, I believe, with the disorganized parking in that green circle right there.
That's true, and there's trees there, there's low areas, and there's no way for people to know how to park out there. So there's a much better solution, and I'm getting ready to show you a concept that I came up with that I think we can work together to solve. So here's the ditch. It's a man-made ditch. The county owns the bottom. It's not owned by the state, so it's not a property repair and rights issue. It's just a permitting issue through DEP. To do what I'm getting ready to talk about. So here's a picture of that ditch, and I'm not an ecologist, I'm not an environmental scientist, but if you look through there, there appears to be very low ecological value to this dead-end ditch that does not have any water pushing through it to try and cleanse it. So what am I thinking about doing here? Let me step back. If you take a look at each one of those red blocks indicates 20 existing parking places. If we were to fill that ditch in, it's very simple to do that. It's just some Army Corps permitting, some DEP permit, relatively inexpensive to do that. We can almost increase the capacity of that parking lot by 1.5 times. And that's without it getting creative and looking into other areas of the property out there. So the big thing is, how do we pay for it? Because this is not a cheap proposition. There's grants available up at the state, and the city's willing to go at risk and apply for these at the county's behalf. Number one is for an FWC Florida Boating Improvement Program grant. They pay 100% of design and permitting for projects like this. I spoke to those folks, and this is a very viable project to them. They're looking forward to an application. Second is construction, whereas obviously that's the big cost in that. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife's got a sport fishing restoration grant that's readily available, which pays 75% of the construction costs. And the beauty of it is they look at the state's contribution through the FBIP program as a match to that. So my estimation is we could probably work together and design, permit, and build this for 10 cents on the dollar. So what
Madam
we
Chair.
are requesting.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Ken, I hate to keep it.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
But I absolutely love this project. I love the partnership, everything about it. I took a lot of arrows for pushing forward with a launch fee on our boat ramps. Thankfully, we got that across the line. This is exactly the type of project that those funds are being collected for. expanding capacity, not maintaining existing facilities, not building the barge canal boat ramp, but expanding capacity and improving our existing facilities. This is exactly where we would go to. I think right now we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400,000 in collected launch fees. And so once we got through the grant money and so forth, whatever else that we could get, the boater improvement funds, then we go and look at those funds and move it to doing something like this.
So what is the city of Crystal River asking? Number one, the city would like to take the lead in this. We would go through the expenses of hiring a consultant, filling out the grant application, and putting it together. The issue is that the county is you are the property owner, so we would be having to work on your behalf, and so we need something formal giving the authority to do that. So what I'm asking is to allow the county administrator and the new city manager to work together, come back with a memorandum of understanding as to who's doing what, and again, the city's willing to take the risk to at least take the first step of this. So, there is an issue with the manatee protection plan. I mean, both the city and the county have these. There's issues with creating new boat ramps, but we would be willing to take the entitlement from the boat ramp that we're closing and moving out to this facility. And that is two things. It gets boats that want to get out into the ocean, out to the Gulf, closer to the Gulf and out of Kings Bay. So I think it's something that would be embraced by the manatee folks, but it's something that we're going to have to explore. And again, identify sources of any local funding. And that's Commissioner Kennard mentioned. I mean, that's readily available. You've got money sitting aside to help with the local match. Not sure where the city is on that part of it yet, but I mean, that's something that we could flesh out in the memorandum of understanding. So once permitting, the city would apply for construction funds and then come back to the Board of County Commissioners with regular feedback as to the process. So what I'm asking for, and I don't know if this needs to be an motion or just a consensus, but essentially direct the county administrator to work with the Crystal River City Manager to develop an MOU and bring it back to this board and to the City Council for approval.
It's listed on here as a discussion, so I think we can do a board consensus and
that's good.
have a
That's good
voting
enough
item
for
later.
us. That's
Yeah.
definitely good enough for us. I'm just not sure what your process is on
Board,
this.
what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I like it a lot. And not only am I for this and want to see that MOU, but if I can be helpful when it gets to that chance in Tallahassee or wherever you're asking money, I'll help you do it.
Thank you very much.
You're
We'll need all the help we can get.
Okay.
Commissioner Bays?
No, I just would, I guess what I'd like to see from our staff is kind of all county boat ramps and kind of identify the collection, because the last thing I want to get into is like, we took all the money from our collections, all 400,000, we put it into one specific area, and then people that live in other areas are upset. So I'm not against it. I just would like to see that information so that we're representing all members of the community and not just a specific area.
Commissioner Kennard?
Well, of course, I'm in favor of the project, and I think, to your point, it's going to take all of these funds that are collected for any of the projects.
Right.
You know, the Hernando Lake ramp, at some point, there's going to need to be some expansion out there, either of parking or the launch facilities, and it may very well take, you know, draining that pot to go and do that $1 million project or whatever it might be. The McCrae's ramp, we definitely have some parking issues there that need to be addressed. That's gonna require property acquisition, constructing additional parking area. You know, that's gonna take some years of collecting those launch fees and then go and get that project done. So I'd be all in favor of looking at what does staff see as those big projects that are coming up, and then let's prioritize them.
Mm-hmm.
Priority one, we've got a project in front of us now. It checks off some boxes for the city. It checks off some boxes for the county. Let's move this to priority one, and then let's figure out how we're going to prioritize the rest of them. And you know, it's something I'm an avid boater, and I don't mind one bit paying that launch fee, knowing that it's going to a fund that is specifically going to expand facilities, existing facilities in the county. Even if it's ramps that I don't use, you know. Here's one that I get to use quite a bit. The Hernando ramp I don't, but when it's its turn to, you know, like SCOP dollars, when it's that road's turn, it's time to put the funds towards that and get it done.
Well, it makes perfect sense to me that just from a common sense standpoint, to spread out capacity around the county, we would certainly be moving from one area to another area to another area and picking the biggest, lowest hanging fruit to expand, you know, capacity in Inverness Lakes region, in Homosassa, McRae's, and so forth.
Yeah.
So makes perfect sense. Yes, Commissioner Bays.
Really what I'm trying to drive home here is I like having these conversations up front, because as soon as we agree to this, they're going to write it in the newspaper, and the next day you're going to have 75 people say, well, what about me?
Yep.
So the issue is, let's start having the conversations ahead of time. Let's create our narrative and stop letting the narrative be created for us. That's my point.
Did you hear that, Mike Bates?
All right, very good.
And
Commissioner
Madam,
Finnegan?
if I could, so this is, I know that the city council overwhelmingly supports this. In fact, Doug Baber had actually made this part of our legislative priorities for this year. So that is included in there. And as Commissioner Kennard sits on the Crystal River Area Council and the crack group, which is a
Please, dear God, get another name for that group.
see the crack group. So that group overwhelmingly supports this, and seeing that it doesn't look like we're going to have public input, we do have several of them in the audience in support for that. So
Well, we will have another open to the public.
okay.
Commissioner Finnegan?
To Commissioner Bays's point about controlling the narrative, that's a good point. What Commissioner Kennard said about Homosassa and why I'm so for this project in Crystal River, although we do have issues in Homosassa, will take a lot more planning. It will take property acquisition. Nothing's identified yet. This, we have the property. It's a much easier, I think someone said, low-hanging fruit. This is something we can accomplish and get the boaters, and maybe that'll leave some of the Homosassa issues. Maybe certain boaters will go to this expanded parking lot. So I think what's good there is good for all along our county's west coast for that Crystal River boat ramp. So I'm looking forward to seeing the project move ahead.
Great.
May I ask one
Good
last
point.
question?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you identified what you think the overall cost would be?
That would be part of our initial engineering on this. I know you had asked for what, 3.5 million? We'd asked for 3.5, which is a broad brush stroke of the numbers we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you. I think we have our direction. Thank
Yeah,
you.
very good. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bays.
Oh, boy. I asked for us, and this is really, I'd just like to direct staff to do some research and let us know what our options are for the future. It's, as we heard today, we had an IMA presentation. I made the comment earlier that we have 3 consultants, 3 IMAs. I think the next meeting, we're gonna have some comp plan amendments brought to us. And as our county transitions from rural to urban, I think that we need to ensure that we're using best practices for growth management. And I want to protect our county and our citizens. And I know that at least one adjacent county is using a special master, which is a land use attorney as their planning and development hearing master. So I wanted to bring this forward. I'm a little concerned that sometimes we're bouncing all over the place. I'm not saying this is the right thing, but I think it's worth having an investigation and just looking at it and seeing if it's something that we should consider. I think all too many times we get up here with everything that's going on until we get this comp plan really nailed down. I'm feeling like we might be a little loosey-goosey.
Well,
Commissioner Kennard?
yeah, I'm certainly not opposed to getting more information or more input. I I do feel like we have an expert in the field in our county attorney, and I would say that whether or not she was sitting in the room, even though we have butt heads on a few things, maybe, and I don't even know if it's something that we could consider, is possibly can we workshop some of these things before it comes to a public hearing, so that we're hearing maybe an equal amount of time from both sides of the issue. You know, we've heard folks from a few of the, or I would say a couple of the applications that the applicant has an hour and a half to present, and I've got to get my whole side out in 3 minutes. I don't know that we want to do a special meeting necessarily, but more of a workshop to get more input, or you don't feel like you're getting qualified input, or just wanting more time, more information to digest in advance, or?
Well, again, we are bound because of the quasi-judicial, that how we get our information to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
We can listen to the PDC board, we can go online and watch them, and then we can listen to the testimony of the applicant. But sometimes I feel like we're not getting maybe the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm having a little bit of angst, that I would like, I think if we got our comp plan really nailed down, that's one thing. I think it helps when developers come in. It's a very clear process. It tells the citizens of the community where we're at, what we've approved, and where we're moving forward, and it allows developers to make their investments. Right now, I feel like we're split. And I think having sometimes a land use attorney, and I'm not saying that we go down this, but I think it's worth the investigation to say, where are we? Or do we just really need to have a big discussion about our comp plan and where we're going?
Maybe we look at, can I respond? Maybe we look at rewriting the comp plan, incorporating all the amendments to it, reorganizing the comp plan, and then you raise the threshold, if you will, for what it takes to change that, after the taxpayers pay a significant bill to have the entire plan rewritten. Any changes to it at that point would take a significant
change.
Yeah, it would be a
Threshold.
Yeah, you're raising the bar. You're raising the threshold that this comp plan has been refreshed to 2023 or 2024, given some things that have changed from the last time that it was written and all of the amendments that have been added in there. Now we've got a major highway going through the center part of our county. We've had COVID. We've had this migration of people to the north, to more rural or suburban parts of the state, which certainly includes us. There's more state money pouring into water quality. Just different things like that I think would be brought into writing a current comp plan for the county, and saying this is current. There shouldn't need to be any amendments to this, and if there are, you've got a next level of proof to get us there.
I like it.
Just a thought.
One key thing that you said is that if we explore and ultimately one benefit to special master, and I'm not saying that I'm for it, but I am for exploring it, is that it speeds up the application process, which someone from Pine Ridge today said that this has been going on forever, and our chair has cancer, so there's been a couple of upheavals that normally wouldn't happen. But the key thing is we hear this at Florida Chamber, we hear it in Tallahassee, we hear it at Florida Association of Counties. Time is money for developers, and if you want lower prices for home building, anything we can do to you're not reducing the quality of the development, but to reduce the unnecessary government bloat of time, it makes a big difference in what the affordability quotient could be. So for that reason alone, I would want to explore it just to see if that's right for us. So,
Yeah.
Commissioner Finnegan, do you have anything?
I just want to say I have asked our attorney questions because I have a big problem with getting information sometimes only days before the meeting, and we have a lot of those. That's a lot of information, and then to ask questions, and then you want to try to get more information. Well, then you've just plumb run out of time, and we're not allowed to go find our own information, which I hate. I have a big problem with that. So now I don't know if it's going to everyone. I have asked all the PDC information quickly, coming to me as quickly as possible so we could at least have that first step of information. The other thing, I know someone said, which I had the same question, why does the applicant get to speak for this long amount of time, and then if someone's hired an attorney, they come up and only get 3 minutes, and that's actually not true. Madam Attorney has informed that all the attorney has to do is fill out a simple form, and they get, is it 30 minutes?
It's actually anyone, not just an attorney, anyone, which you all are going to see. Folks have looked at our code and have learned the quasi-judicial procedures and the party in opposition procedures. And I don't know what to attribute that to, but it's been in the code for a very long time. So anyone can ask for party in opposition status, and that status is considered by the board immediately prior to a quasi-judicial hearing as to whether or not the board wants to grant that status to that individual. And then then the applicant, our staff, and that party would get each 30 minutes, and they have the right of cross-examination. They have the right to participate as a full party. And at the Pine Ridge hearing, there are 3 parties who have asked for that status. And I know that county staff has given out those applications to others and other things. So you're going to see more individuals use that process.
Okay.
And honestly, good for them, because, I think people come up and they feel like they have to say a lot of the same things, and they can organize their efforts and be able to ask those questions back and forth. Maybe this will make our proceedings be a little more efficient.
I will say it's going to make them a little lengthier.
Well, maybe the next one, maybe.
But absolutely, I remember when Frank Kolitz and Larry Haig were instrumental in getting that process added back into our code after I started working for the county. So it's there, it's been there.
And just for the man. So the public knows how difficult this is. We as board members, we can't talk amongst ourselves. We can't even talk to our own staff. So,
Or spouses, for those of you who have them.
I mean, we get to talk to our attorney. So that's where we're left in disseminating all this information, and it's overwhelming. I mean, you want to do it right. You want to make the right decision, and it's tough.
Yes.
In that vein, and following up on what Commissioner Finnegan was saying earlier, I don't know if y'all have all talked to Eric, but staff is making a concerted effort to get you more information as soon as possible. So at the time that the PDC members get their agenda packets, you are also going to get their agenda packets so that you have more time. We've heard from you, the difficulty that sometimes the last minute stuff has. So that process is starting, and we're going to catch up if there are any that PDC has heard, which you're going to get. So hopefully that'll help a little bit. But staff has definitely heard the frustration.
Commissioner Kennard, you look like you had
No,
something
I'm
else.
good. I'm good.
I would say having, coming up on my third anniversary of hearing quasi-judicial hearing cases, I'm with Commissioner Finnegan, I like having filed a, what is it called, opposition?
Party in opposition.
Party in opposition. A lot of times speakers come up and they say the same thing over and over and over again. We can look out in an audience and see, and especially if they're wearing t-shirts, we know how many are against it, right? And we see our email box. You can fill the email box. Personally, as one of 5, more or less judge and jury, I would love to have, applicant, staff, and then if there's one party in opposition that has a cogent argument that gets everything that community wants to say in one 30-minute presentation like the other two get. That makes it neat and easy, and we're not making decisions after we've been up here for 13 hours, which is a little tough. That's just a global comment for all quasi-judicial, especially the contentious ones.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just because one individual fills out this opposition paperwork doesn't mean that everybody in the room can't fill it out.
Exactly.
So,
I'm just saying that
or-
if I could wave a
yeah.
magic wand from
Right.
sitting in this chair, that's what would appeal to me the most. But,
Right.
you know,
So you'll have, we could certainly have one person that's filled out that paperwork come up and give their 30 minutes of opposition to it, but they may be in disagreement with the rest of the crowd.
absolutely. And there might be 15 or 50 more people that all
Okay.
file for it. And it's
Okay,
30
just-
minutes at a time.
Madam Chair?
So, yes.
Just a reminder, we approve or disapprove that, right? So I think we would have some understanding if this was going to be a process that may get abused.
Right.
We would just not allow that. And then, they wouldn't be able to have their 30 minutes. And I think, with certain groups, we kind of see who's putting the people together and having that concerted effort.
So may I, just so we're all clear, so they have to meet the Chapter 163 requirements that they are an individual who is harmed to a greater level than the general public. So for example, if it was the lot next door to someone was being rezoned, then of course, under the ideas of standing, all of the adjoining property owners would probably meet that test. But somebody who's just worried about the gopher tortoises, if it was Gopher Tortoise USA group, they might not be able to demonstrate the requisite standing just because they're worried that there's a gopher tortoise home on there. So maybe that's not the best example.
No, nice
but
example on the fly,
good
Madam
example.
Attorney. Well done.
anyway, on the fly. So they can't just be anybody. It has to be somebody that has standing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
So is the idea then to give staff direction to possibly look at a full comp amendment, or look at this, or both, or?
Honestly, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We're talking about the special master, and I haven't really heard a case for that, how that's going to be more beneficial. I have heard a case for maybe the comp plan. I don't know how we start that. I'm sure there's going to be a consultant and a huge expense. I don't know if some of you that's on the board before already have an idea of what this will cost, or maybe Mr. Howard,
It's an enterprise fund, right?
No,
Can we
no,
put-
sir.
Why?
Because Gaston Hall will be right up there at that mic yelling at you.
That's all right, he's yelled at me before.
I'll let him answer that after hours for you. It is not the growth management and the comp plan would not be part of the building enterprise fund. Building permits and it's different. I'm pretty sure that's what staff would say. The other thing I've heard staff over the years say is that the comp plan, while some people don't like the comp plan and think that it's stale, of the, I'm going to say 20, that's probably wrong, chapters within the comp plan, they are regularly updated. There's a schedule of when the various chapters are updated. I think staff would probably have a schedule of when they've last been updated. So staff would probably need to know what you mean by update the comp plan, because I think what they would say is we do update it. So if you have certain portions of the comp plan that you want updated, like, the future land use element, for example, which you update all the time, because every time you do a comp plan amendment, you're updating that future, generalized future land use map. I think there's the economic development section of it. So is there a particular section you're interested in updating? Because of course that would be a much smaller bite than saying we want to redo the whole comp plan.
Madam Chair, and are we only talking about our comp plan? Are we comfortable with the land development code for our future growth? I know that, there's some changes coming up to that.
Well, I think that certainly that's another discussion, and they have to work together. But even though each individual chapter or section of the comp plan is updated, they still have to all work together. We're going to have what 4 IMAs now, and those have to be considered I would think in each section of that of the comp plan. I don't know if they currently are or not. I think there's obviously some changes that are happening with development on the west side of 19. That would need to be considered there. Water quality issues on both sides of the county. Those are things that need to be considered. And I just don't know if when each section is updated, are we just doing, we updating this section and then it's kind of an oh yeah comment in a previous section. It's not, I don't mean that in a derogatory way towards staff that's bringing these updates to us, but does it function as one whole unit or a lot of different sections?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is this something discussing the updates and where we stand currently? Is that something that we would want a presentation on, or maybe a workshop that we have?
Well, I was going to, actually, Eric just came over, but one thing this could be is the 2024 targets for action. From what I'm hearing from you all, I think this would be a great place for that when we have that meeting. We could compile some of this information, a lot of the good stuff that Denise has said, and staff, we can come up with some F-bombs if there's an F-bomb attached to this. But also I think that's a good place to have the conversation and get you ready. And then what we need to do, we'll have action steps, activities, milestones, what we can accomplish in 2024.
Will this be the January retreat?
Correct, yes.
And so we would also look at special master at that time?
You could, anything you want to incorporate into these activities, milestones, explore them. Obviously before that we could do things, but I think that's a really good place to place this in there if you want this to be something that we really go after in the next 12 months. It's going to be here before you know it. We're getting into obviously almost November, December, and then
say it, man. Don't
this gets
say
getting
it.
2024 is coming.
I feel like I want a lot more information. So,
Yeah.
if we're going to put it on 2024, if my peers agree, I want to see a lot.
We'll
more
gather all that
with
information,
it.
and then that you'll make that decision obviously when we get into that 2024 session if that's something you want to go with. By then you could say this
Well,
isn't
and
going to
I
go.
think this goes back to the point, we talked about this earlier. You would have to have a comp plan amendment if we actually started looking at corridors where we've approved development or where we know development is going, that we get that into our comp plan so that it prevents other people from going in there and doing something on a piece of property that then we have to pay condemnation to get it back to do the future capacity that we need. So I think those are all.
And then the comp plans are balancing acts, places I've been before where if you rewrite them, then they could have taken a template from some other metro area that is it customizable to this county. So those are always challenges. I mean, Eric have dealt with that other places. So, but sometimes you can't scrap everything, but there could be some tweaks here and there. And there's some things we're bringing forward, I think, in November. I think it's going to deal with some other issues.
I just like information. And I feel like I'm on, it's like an Easter egg hunt. Like I have to go research it, spend hours doing it. And it's frustrating to me. And because I don't feel competent enough, I'm not a land use attorney to completely, I don't know the question to ask if I don't know it. And that's my frustration.
I agree with Commissioner Bays. Never have I wanted a law degree more than this job. Shudder. Sorry, Denise.
It's okay. I'm here.
All right, if you're all good, you're done? Okay.
Thank you.
So, N1, update on IV4. Did you want to talk about, speaking of special master, Mr. Landon?
Yes, there were about a dozen cases that went to special master last week. All were found guilty, but they were all given in some significant amount of time to abate or correct. So I think in a lot of the cases, they were given up to 7 months to make those corrections. The reason being is they have several different state agencies that they have to partner with to get corrections in addition with the county. So, but they were all found guilty, but they all, the goal of code enforcement or the special master is not necessarily to levy fines, but is to get the property owner to come into compliance. So that's their objective. So they gave the necessary time that they felt was appropriate to bring the property owner into compliance. So that's the update from the special master hearing.
Not all. Some were just levied fines.
Sure.
I think there were 7 $2,500 fines. Does that sound right?
I believe so.
So, yeah, so some of the ones that could be cured were given an opportunity to cure. Those that were irreparable, meaning all the trees were cut down and you couldn't replant them, those were fined $2,500 each case. So, and I think there were 7 of those.
And probably bigger fines inbound from other agencies, so. Is Don Maycock still out there? Oh, there you are, great. I'm sorry I skipped over you before this. The only possible thing is that if your address has been misincluded into the IV4 development, and Mr. Landon can run that for you and make sure that you are indeed platted within IV4, then there's nothing we can do to help you outside of the rest of IV4. But if there's been a mistake made, then obviously we would rectify that. Yes.
Which was brought up when he spoke. For even the people that are living in there, we must have some avenue to get them emergency permits, because if something happens with their electrical panel or with their HVAC, you have to pull a permit to get that fixed or to do a change out. So,
Madam Attorney?
I'm not aware of any of those requests having been made.
well, I mean, he wants a generator, and that would fall into maybe an emergency permit or electrical. maybe.
Well, the numbers that we got back from the engineering firm after the perk test were not good. So just got those, and so we're going to be coming up with, I think, we're going to do something at the next meeting, correct? Some sort of statement
Yeah, I think
at
we're
the
still,
next meeting?
we're still reviewing the documents.
Yeah. The numbers are pretty complex, so we have to do a little bit more digging to find out if they're really true or not, if there's any good path forward to bring this to some sort of good resolution through a neighborhood-funded MSBU, just to be clear, not general fund funded. Okay, then, anything else?
Did he get his answer then? So is
Mr.
Eric-
Landon's
I'll
going
let
to,
Eric look-
yes.
Yeah, look into it with him.
And maybe he could be removed from that if he's inadvertently in that group of people.
The problem is that it opens up all permits to be challenged. That's the issue. But I hear you, and we
I think
need,
he's on the paved road though, on Independence is what I heard. I'm sure
Anyway.
Eric will figure it
Yeah,
out.
Eric can do that after the meeting. Or right
Eric,
now,
would you
he-
follow up with me after you find out what's going on? I appreciate it. Okay, Madam Attorney?
I have nothing, ma'am.
Okay. And our second open to the public. Would anyone like to address the board?
I'll be very, very brief and very quiet. Thank you. And the next time I will stay on script, which is what got me flabbergasted, and that's the second time, and it won't happen a third. There is a correction as I was reading my notes, and the question on the artifacts, it was not 19, it was Lecanto Highway and US 44 in the ditch that they did dig out artifacts of indigenous that was sent to UF. And I'm wondering, why aren't they here in some kind of museum? Because we do have a lot of indigenous people. The only other issue that I would like to bring up is, which we've already been on it, it's been discussed, I'd like to see no more clear cutting of any lot. You're taking down 30-year-old trees that our nature is accustomed to, and then they're putting up non-indigenous trees that are brand new, and our nature cannot survive there. And if we are the nature coast, we need to keep it the nature coast. We need to look at, because manatees are becoming extinct again. And the more we build, and I know building has to happen, but if we don't leave enough earth between the buildings, and that's why I like to push that 1 acre lots, except in areas where we do need housing for the working person that works for a mom and pop and can afford it. My son is going to end up living in a not so great neighborhood because the rent there is $800 a month, where he would normally have to pay $1,200 a month. So we do need housing for our workers that are here. And that's it.
Thank you, Stephen. Next.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have to say, Mr. and Mrs. South, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Walzer, are both represented by counsel and have both filed applications to become parties in opposition. I'm not exactly sure why they keep addressing you. I spoke to their lawyer today before this meeting, and I specifically talked about the ex parte communications. You all are not allowed to talk to the developer. You're not allowed to talk to your staff, and you shouldn't be talking to anybody who will become a party in opposition. So I'm not sure why they keep talking to you.
Are we allowed to listen?
Well, it's up to them and their lawyer, but I would say that some people might find fault with the fact that they're talking to you outside of a hearing. Perhaps the applicant and the applicant's attorneys wouldn't appreciate that.
You may want to sit down. Simply because what she's saying is that it might hurt your case.
It goes both ways.
I
Their
know.
lawyer
If I-
has sent me emails challenging the fact and alleging that there have been ex parte communications that have already occurred between certain commissioners and the applicant or the applicant's representatives. He has, and they know this, their lawyer sent me these emails. So you can't have it both ways.
Madam
Correct.
Attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it is open to the public. I think that should be their decision, not ours, correct?
Absolutely, it is not yours. I'm kind of just putting it out there because I've gotten the emails from Mr. Weiner alleging that there have been ex parte communications between commissioners and the applicant. So,
If I'm understanding, if we're reading between the lines here properly, if it were the applicant coming up during open to the public and pleading their case, even if we didn't respond, we're still hearing information, we're still gathering information from either the applicant or those opposed to the application outside of a public hearing environment. And in this case, of course, we want to hear what the public has to say. But if it were the applicant up here or the applicant's attorney up here, the public would be livid about us, about taking that. And ultimately, however it's decided, it may end up in another lawsuit down the road, and it's going to be, these are communications that took place outside of the public hearing.
That's why I said that. It's not to be disrespectful. Remember, job one for us is to always mind the taxpayer dollars very, very carefully and doing the limited duties of government, and one of them is reducing the possibility for lawsuits. So
Anyway,
It's
if
not
they want
fun to sit
to, if
up
they
here.
want to speak, they can speak.
Thank you for the opportunity. It is appreciated. I'm Diane South. Thank you. I do have a couple questions on the topic of M1. Would that be a private workshop or is that a public meeting? Would we be able to attend the discussion on Ms. Bay's concern about possibly hiring a consultant? Then also, I guess I don't really expect an answer, but it would be nice, thank you. On H1, Chris Evans, his hurricane update was very informative. However, in talking with a number of people, a concern that they have, and it wasn't discussed, was the fact that the insurance company and the adjusters are not getting back to people. It's been a couple of months now, and people have not heard back. So there was concern, and I did not hear that addressed, and I thought it was important enough to talk about. And then also I had a question about FEMA. Does FEMA continue to pay out or help people that choose to rebuild or, in that hurricane area? Or an example, maybe like the Glamp Ground? I mean, that whole area, and that's probably the bad example, but with seeing all the flooding, I'm not familiar with what FEMA actually will pay out year after year after year. It was just a concern, and I didn't know if that was part of Florida's budget. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. My name is Ron Walser. I live in Pine Ridge on Mallow Circle. And I would agree with Attorney Lynn. We're not here to talk about the applicant's case. We just wanted to respond to some things that were brought up today. One of those things with the M1, we were discussing about the procedure for addressing an application and when the public wanted to be involved. And I just wanted you to know that, we spend lots of time thinking and talking about that amongst ourselves, because obviously there's things in these applications, not just this one, but others. And it's tough for a group to try and approach this as it is for you guys if we can't talk. Nobody can talk to each other. So, we don't know what you think. We don't know what you feel. We don't know what you like about it or don't like about it. And sometimes, in my mind, I think we should try and work towards a system where there can be more communication, because with communication comes understanding and possibly compromise in some areas. But it's just a very frustrating when we try to put our point across and you try to put yours, and none of us can talk to each other. So I wish that could be improved. Also, my input on the M1, I think if we have questions about land use and we're not sure about it, I think it's a great idea, Commissioner Bays, to get some expert help and advice. Not all of us know everything, so sometimes getting expert advice helps everybody. So thank you guys, and I appreciate you letting me have the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Walser. Next.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Paula Sutton.
You're back.
I'm back, yes.
Yay.
Yes, thanks. So I live on Mallow Circle, and I would say I was deeply affected by this proposed change because we own 4 lots right on the golf course. So I'm happy to find about this special dispensation for people that are overly affected, so that might be me, but maybe not. But I sat here all afternoon and listened to the process, and I just had a couple comments. I want to thank you all for going through the grind of the public policy and going through all of these details. A lot of the work that you do, the general public doesn't understand because that's not what they do. They have other concerns. And I came mostly because of the special master opportunity. I think that's a great idea, Commissioner Bays, and I thank you for admitting your lack of knowledge and that you seek to make the best decision, and you can't make a good decision unless you understand. And as somebody that's somewhat new to Florida, I don't understand myself, and I've done a great deal of research, and I'm with you. I don't understand either, and it's frightening that a decision might be made by people that don't have all of the information. And land use is a very specific area, so we might have a great attorney here with the county, but we need somebody, I would say, that is impartial and knows the very latest and greatest interpretations of statute and so forth. So I do want you to get this right. I do understand that developers want a predictable regulatory environment, that they want to, nobody wants to waste time and money for them to buy a golf course thinking they can flip it into a bunch of houses if it's not going to be reality. So everybody needs to, get the proper information, and hopefully we can make a decision that is best. And I thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
I guess I'm closing out your day. Dale Steffen, I also live in Pine Ridge. I just wanted to talk about something totally unrelated. So people were up here earlier in favor of the border resolution that you proposed. And I just wanted to speak up that I'm against it. You guys have enough to do, enough on your plate to be worried about county issues. I think to spend time debating and talking and proposing things that are national issues is not really your job. And I just wanted to let you know that there's people in the county that don't think it's appropriate.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? Seeing none. Ms. Snow, we were talking about that being at the, where'd you go? It's going to be at the retreat in January, and yes, that's a publicly noticed meeting. We just don't accept public comment there. You may attend and listen to everything we say. Not allowed to speak outside of publicly noticed meetings where y'all can hear what we're talking about. And Mr. Walzer, I agree with you on the communication thing. I think a lot of times you could work things out if we're allowed to communicate, but sadly we cannot with the current situation. Board, do you have any other comments?
I do.
Okay.
To follow up what you were saying to Ms. South,
Was South, not Snow. I'm so sorry.
I believe she said it was South. And I'm looking at Madam Attorney. She may not be able to speak at the January, but before any changes would be made, we would have a public hearing, correct? And the public could speak before any changes were made.
I think what Mr. Howard was referring to is that at your retreat, we would flesh out the action items and so forth. But then when those things come before you, whether it's in a workshop or by an ordinance amendment or a comp plan amendment, yes, it would be open to the public.
And Madam Attorney, are you able, she had a question earlier about the term indefinite. Are you allowed to answer that here? That question?
The staff is working on rescheduling the hearing, and when that is rescheduled, everyone will be notified. Everyone within the 500 feet will be notified again. So if they're in the affected area, they'll be notified when the next hearing is going to happen. And I don't think it's indefinite.
Okay.
I think it's going to come up as soon as everybody can get it scheduled.
And was there another question about that? Oh, someone had asked about no timely notice, but I don't know that any of us had a timely notice. It was kind of a last minute change for all of us.
The applicant, until the applicant is pending before the board in a hearing, the application is basically sitting with staff, and it is the applicant's determination when the applicant wishes to bring that before the board. Of course, once it's in a hearing, whether that hearing would be before the Planning and Development Commission or the board, then and only then would the board make the determination as to whether or not a continuance would be granted. So the reason that this was appropriate to be continued was because it was not before you. In other words, the hearing hadn't started yet. So in the county, staff has always processed the applicant's requests. It's nothing unusual. It's done like that always, except if it's pending, meaning the hearing has already started, then it's up to the board, either this board or the PDC, to continue it.
And all of that was driven by Commissioner Schleybaugh waiting for her surgery date, and that's what triggered all of this, so.
Well, honestly, it's up to the applicant until it's actually before you. So that was what the applicant wrote in their email, but I would tell you the reason was not of a consideration to staff. It was just that the applicant asked to continue.
Yes. I do understand the legal aspect of that, and thank you for getting the clarification on the voting aspect after the retreat. Did you have something else?
Yep. And just the final thing, since some people did mention it earlier, and I thank Mrs. Stefan for caring about our time, but I do want to say I'm a fantastic multitasker, and to rework the resolution is nothing that's going to take time away from county business. But that is an excellent point, because I promised that I'd bring something back. I don't know if it'll be at the next meeting. It might be at one after. Our senator has reached out and agreed to help with that, and has offered some expertise in that area, which I'm greatly appreciative of. But we're not addressing it as a national issue. When we rework this, it's going to be the spillover and the concerns of people in Citrus County and how it's specifically affecting Citrus County. But I wouldn't mind, since it was brought up, let's take the temperature of the board. That will help myself and the senator to know what direction we're going in. So I'd like to know where my peers are on this as we're working on it.
Where your support for it, right? On the surface, I'll support it. I think supporting is provided that it's written in a manner that is supporting our governor's actions, securing our borders. I think it's important for both our state and our federal leaders to hear from local individuals, local governments. Otherwise the narrative is driven by the media. And so I think them hearing from individuals or local governments, I don't see it, I think it's outside of a little bit of discussion. I don't think it's something that's going to take an inordinate amount of time, and wait and see what you come back with. But on the surface, certainly it's something that I'm going to support.
Thank you.
I have concerns. I guess my biggest issue is, since the governor has already put some legislation or a policy in place that he passed July 1, he's also put $12 million of reoccurring money into the budget year over year to transport illegal immigrants out of our state. I'm not sure what it gets us, other than we've elevated this conversation, we're talking about it, and what I'm very concerned about is without being forward about it, because I think it's kind of like sometimes you get on in the paper and you get out in media and you tell people what your plan is. We have assets in this county that I think right now today, with what we're facing, you bring attention to us that puts us at risk. It puts us at risk for disabling Florida as a state.
I don't agree with that at all.
I'll go ahead and say it then. You got a nuclear power plant that's decommissioned sitting out there, and it still has nuclear cells sitting out there. You have 2 gas lines running through this state. You think a terrorist, if he wants to cripple Florida, is not going to look at our county then?
What does that have to do with a resolution? You just put it out there in the whole world.
I did, because I think by you doing a resolution, talking about it, you're telling this is going to, there's no place else that's made a resolution like this as a county.
That is nonsensical.
I don't think so.
And
we are at risk for war in this very state. Look at the numbers of immigrants that are here from the very states that we're talking about. And I don't think there's one thing to be gained out of this.
Well, may I address that before you go? So as I mentioned at the last meeting, when you have a large group of people and your citizens that are asking you to do something on a level that we can't do. In Citrus County, we can't say, okay, we're going to fix this issue for you because we're commissioners, we're not Congress. And that's pretty much where it lies. There's two things you can do. Just say, sorry, call your congressman. Or you can say, okay, I can't fix that problem, but as a large body of people that really care about this issue, and we can point out how it affects Citrus County, we can collectively say our citizens care about an issue, and this is how we're showing you collectively. Putting a resolution out and saying that's that comes from our county and a terrorist is going to know about that's nonsensical. That doesn't even make any sense. That is so far down a path that makes no sense to this at all. And the reason why it is changed, because Lee County that did look at this first, that was prior to the governor implementing all of these things that he did. So when it was brought, they said, hey, would you bring this? The more we looked at it, it said, for your reason, hey, the governor's already done these things. If a group of people care so deeply about this issue and why and how it affects Citrus County, overflow of fentanyl could be one very good reason. This is how collectively say, we're concerned about this, but here's why. Because it affects our county in these ways, and that's what we're working on.
I would say that all four of us, and five if Ruthie was here, would say that we are adamantly in favor of border security and cleaning up the mess that has been created there. We can agree on the goal. We may not always agree on the method to get there. So what bothered me about the original resolution was that you were exhorting the resolution was exhorting the governor to do things he had already done, number one. So it was not a current document. And as what the mess that's going on in United States Congress right now shows is that if we want to get things done as Republicans, you need to do it in a bipartisan fashion. So inflammatory or partisan language does not help to actually fix the problem, which is a very porous border right now with fentanyl, with all these bad things that are happening there. So I'm just going to say, totally agree with the goal. If you bring it forward, I look forward to reading it and seeing if I can support that, but I would be on the fence right now.
So you got one.
I said on the fence.
That helps
Not,
moving
pardon
forward.
the pun, sitting on the fence, sorry.
Apparently, we are going to have some discussion about this when it comes forward.
That helps moving forward. Thank you.
As long as it is a more community-minded, that we all want border security. And, honestly, we have roads to pave. We do have a lot of other things. But I do understand both of your comments that says that we have a little bit bigger megaphone as a collected governmental body than the average citizen, right? I get that. So, yes.
And I know you say because you're representing the body of people, and I appreciate when you say we have other things, we have road to pave. We're not so myopic that we can only focus on one thing. In a day, from morning till, and some days late at night, I work on all kinds of things. So there's no one that's been missed or no county duty that's been missed by working on some extra things that a body of people has reached out. And I know 100% of the people, maybe aren't for this, but it was larger than the first body of person that said, hey, will you put this forward to the county for us? That's why it got pulled. This grew legs and people are concerned, but for very specific reasons to Citrus County. And that's why I said the voice has to be clearer. Mm-hmm. And I'll come back and make sure that voice is clear.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, board? Yes, sir. How's the bet in line? Do I extend this or make it super fast? All right, please join us for upcoming meetings. We have the next three regular meetings are all here in this room at 1 p.m. on November 14th, November 28th, and December 12th. And with that, we are adjourned.